Hello, and welcome to Big Witch Energy, the podcast that journeys into the wonderful and witchy world of Motherland, Fort Salem. We're going to recap and discuss all of the delicious content in every episode. I'm Bree.
And I'm Theora.
Come along with us while we dive deep into the hows, whys, whos, and what of this amazing show. Well, it's episode 3 time of season 2. And
Ooh, sure is.
It is. This one has quite an interesting title. Tiffany.
A Tiffany.
A Tiffany.
A Tiffany.
Not Tiffany.
Not just Tiffany.
Not just Tiffany.
It is not breakfast with. It is at a Tiffany.
Yeah, just a Tiffany.
Just a Tiffany.
I mean, is it a lamp? Is it a person? We don't know yet.
Is it jewelry? No one knows.
Yeah, who knows? But
we'll find out.
I guess Raelle and Aaron Mayer, who wrote this episode, wanted us to be intrigued by a Tiffany.
Mm-hmm.
And the episode was directed by Shannon Coley, returning again.
Yeah, so let's find out, what is a Tiffany? What's so special about it?
First, we have to find out that the president doesn't have an Oval Office. Or at least is not meeting with people in an Oval Office.
Wade's like, all the men use that room. I'm gonna do me, and we're going somewhere else.
We're going somewhere else that's not oval and smaller.
It's an intimidation tactic on Wade's part.
I guess she does look very intimidating just like in charge at the one side of this rectangular room. But
respect Wade.
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying.
We're opening with the Biddy's Alder, President Wade, Vice President Silver, and Petra in this not oval room. And they're discussing an order to open all of these test centers to find the lost witches that are out and about in the country. And Wade's balking at signing it because she knows that once she does, there's going to be a huge public outcry about this, which is logical.
Very political, yes.
It's a very political... I mean, if you think about it, they have to do something. And of course, Wade's going to think of it politically. And Silver has, the witch hate agenda that he's on. So, of course, he's not going to want to do it. But
it's also a little weird from Wade's perspective because I'd imagine they don't explain if this is an election year or not, because I feel like that will sway things one way or the other. But from Wade's perspective, it's also in her interest to have more soldiers, because if they're fighting the spree and losing, like, wouldn't it be better to have more witches if they can identify them? So I'm thinking maybe it's an election year because civilians outnumber witches, and so they're the ones voting. So maybe that's influencing this, aside from like the Silver stuff, which I think he's more of the heavy hand in this kind of mindset Wade has. And also Alder's been pissing her off since like day one.
Exactly. I think it's a combination of all of these things. And a big part of it is Silver's been, whispering in her ear and probably using a lot of pressure in other respects as well, because he's the one standing there saying, so we're just going to give you our daughters in perpetuity. This isn't right. And I'm like, hello, hypocrisy, boy. 2000.
Yeah. It's literally the law that if you're a witch of conscription age, you're bound to serve in the army. And like, again, it goes to that crazy cognitive dissonance where like that's been fine for 300 years. But if it's suddenly my daughter who's a witch, no one's like worried that they have witches in their family. They're just like, oh, how dare you take them into the army? But it's like, we've been doing this for 300 years and you guys were cool with it until now. Hypocrisy. It's just that privilege crap. It is a double standard. It's gross.
It's disgusting, and it makes me very mad in this scene. And I am with Alder. She's over there like simmering like a friggin' pressure cooker. But then she starts, well, things kind of take a turn, and you start to hear the biddies in the background doing a little whisper back there. And up to this point, we've really only seen them hiss and make those kind of noises, but they're back there whispering. You can tell that it's some kind of work. And then the president just starts to change her tune. And it's obvious that Alder has used work to push the president, because she just turns around and is like, I don't know, Blanton. Maybe witches must be protected, and signs the order.
Alder's always out here breaking her own rules.
Thank you. This is
Always.
like the whole room. This is the room of hypocrisy. No.
Like, she does it all the time, and it's like, girl.
You can't do this. The Hague, the Hague has outlawed this. And let me tell you one thing. The Hague wouldn't outlaw anything if Alder didn't, be like, we need to outlaw this.
Right. Why is it outlawed, Alder, who made the laws? Come on now.
But I had no other choice, so blah, blah, blah. No, you had a choice.
No, she definitely had a choice. The choice was to let it happen and figure something else out. But Alder is just like, whatever, I'm doing it for the greater good or whatever, so this is totally fine, this mind control I'm doing.
It's fine.
Ridiculous.
Alder's like, oh, you want to be hypocritical, Vice President Silver? Hold my whiskey. Let me just up the ante. But so this is like our first big example of Alder continuing her doing whatever the hell she pretty much wants to get the result that she wants this season.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that's being highlighted in this scene is that Wade is really being puppeted by both parties. Like,
exactly.
Alder is work puppeting her more than once to just do the witch agenda, but then Silver, spoiler on the Camarilla side of things, is trying to get her to essentially side with the civilian stuff, because he, from his perspective, he's trying to show that, and I wonder if he knew this was going to happen with Sarah Alder, because from his perspective politically it makes sense for him to be in the scene. He's very against Wade signing this thing, so he's opposing this whole let's find witches and conscript them thing, which then, if you think about it, if he's publicly being like, look, I opposed this the whole time, but Wade signed it, then he's showing that he's in favor of these groups that are anti-witch.
Right.
And so he can win that base over to gain him political favor or to gain him power with those people. And so I have to wonder, like, if he knew this was going to happen with Alder, like, forcing Wade's hand to, like, sign it, because Wade signed this, he did not. So if you think about it, like, politically, he set himself up very nicely with this scene. Like, if he logically thought this was going to happen this way.
I honestly don't think he's that smart to do that. No. I think that he's just an opportunist in the respect that no matter which way it went down, he was going to find a way to make it work for him. And I don't think he knows enough about witches.
I don't know. I think he knows more than we think he knows about witches. And, like, think about it. There's 300 plus years of documents and history about Sarah Alder. So, and as we see later, Sarah Alder has broken rules before when it's in her favor. So it's like, this isn't new.
I don't think he was always in the Camarilla, though. I think the Camarilla just sought him out and were like, all right, we're going to basically, I think they're using him in a way.
Oh, I think they totally can be. I'm just saying, like, information about Sarah Alder exists. So, like, if you want to study Sarah Alder, regardless of who you are, that information is out there.
I just don't think he's interested enough to study anybody, especially even Sarah Alder. I think he's just being fed information, and that's about it, because he's a hateful little dickhead.
Possibly. I don't know. He's a high public official. I would assume he knows Sarah and knows her dynamic with Wade. And I feel like he's playing into that because it's obvious that they hate each other if you're in a room with them.
Yeah. I don't know. American public officials have a history of not being as informed as we think they should be.
Yes, that is true.
I don't know. I hope that we find out in season 3, though, what his involvement has been and a little more about his backstory. Not like
I just want him to die. I don't really care.
I mean, I do too, but I want to know what, like, can we just have a little info drop on what he knew while, just a couple of lines. That's all.
Then end him.
Yeah. Very horribly, please.
But yeah, so nothing's going well in the world of American politics in this scene.
No, it's all nothing at all.
But anyway, so we leave that and head on over to the unit. And they're walking through Fort Salem looking like a bunch of wet little puppies. And and it's not raining, so someone made this happen, and Raelle comments to Abigail to like give them a heads up before doing weather work next time. So this is all Abigail's fault, making them wet puppies. And as they're walking, Tally starts like kind of lamenting that I guess they all came from their separate like skills classes. And Tally's like lamenting that her sight was kind of distracted today, like I guess in her knower lessons, because she can't stop thinking about the redacted dashing soldier from the photo. And like, same girl. You and I both have Eve Pilastri energy when it comes to the soldier, where it's, I think about her all the time because, yeah, I would too. So Tally's off in dreamland and it's just screwing with her sight. And Abigail doesn't see or pick up on the sapphic vapors happening here, and she's just like, whatever, like, maybe the army messed up and that's why she was hidden or whatever. Like, army does things for reasons. So like Abigail can't see the conspiracy. She's just like, I'm sure there was a reason for this. So put a pin in that sentiment there. And from there, they transition to like Raelle's Witchbomb experiments because they're all kind of doing their own different things and they're like catching up during this walk. And Raelle is super frustrated, as expected, because Isadora is still experimenting on her, and she explains that like she wants Raelle to like serenade the mycelium with every seed sound known to which kind to get the witch bomb to go off, instead of like putting her in all these experiments where she's almost dying. And I think at this point, Isadora's just like, I'm tired of coming up with these experiments to like trick the mycelium into thinking you're dead. Like, just sing to it. So that's where they're at, and it's not going well, according to Raelle.
It's just super hilarious to think of those two working on this whole thing. And just, I love Isadora and Raelle. Like, they're so different.
It's amazing. Yeah, no, they're way too different to be in scenes together, and I fucking love it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not going well, and Abigail tries to comfort Raelle by projecting her own feelings, and she's like, try to view this as a good thing, because Abigail's in a situation where she has FOMO, according to Ashley, and she's kind of on the outs of this whole thing. And so she's like, try to view your situation right now as a good thing. You get to do something new for yourself. And I think this is where Abigail's trying to rationalize not being part of this witch bomb thing. She's like, you can make a name for yourself, Raelle, because making a name for yourself is what Abigail wants. But Raelle just wants a normal life with a mortgage and a marriage. And she's like, I don't want any of this mycelium stuff. And she's like, I don't understand how I'm supposed to harness whatever the hell this is, because I can barely do like basic war college stuff. And I have this big, powerful, uncontrollable thing happening to me. And, Raelle is constantly in a position where she has no control over anything. So I feel like this is just making her spiral even more, and just poor Raelle. But Abigail cuts her off because, again, Abigail's just jealous of this whole situation because she wants to be the witch bomb. She wants to be Abigail the Great. And Raelle has this opportunity thrown onto her that Abigail would literally kill for. So she just is just like, enough with the complaining about being great. Just like, embrace the situation and don't make me throw a water spout at you again. And then Raelle's like, that was on purpose.
It's like, yes, Raelle, it was on purpose.
Of course, Abigail's doing weather work at you bitches. Like, she's salty about all this stuff. You guys are both special. Raelle's seeing sexy dream women, and Raelle.
Oh, you mean?
I mean, Tally's seeing sexy dream women, and Raelle is got this powerful mushroom. So Abigail's throwing weather work at them because she's mad.
Yep. Poor little Abigail having an identity crisis time in this episode.
Yeah, I feel like she's been having an identity crisis since like season 1, but it's like it's really getting to her here because she had an opportunity to be special as being part of the Witchbomb, like the thing she's been looking for, and it was just like taken away from her, and it's just like, you're not special, Abigail. So I feel like it's just like triggering her.
Absolutely.
You know?
Because I think in this episode especially, it's just gonna really put the nail in that coffin for her of the fact that she's in a way fodder for the bellwether line. Like she has no personal identity in a way.
Yeah. And that's the thing that she wants. So yeah, I agree. But you know, Abigail's got plenty of room to grow. Don't worry, baby Abigail, you'll get there, girl. And from there, the unit goes into the War College living room. I guess that's where they were walking to. And once inside, the rest of the cadets are in this half circle around a very intimidating woman with HBIC energy that's sipping tea like she owns the place. Shout out her black suit and her slim gold tie. It's very big witch energy here. And Raelle, ever the well-mannered army lover, says, "Who's the old lady?" to Abigail.
Like, not even softly. Like she's takes her volume down about a half a step and says, "Who's the old lady?"
No, this is the Tally stage whisper at the wedding. Yeah. Where she's like, "I think Scylla is free, everyone." Yeah. That's what's happening again. Again, they share a brain cell, and it's not always a good thing. And so the old lady has impeccable hearing, or just ears, because she's like, the old lady here, I heard you, blonde girl, is the Imperatrix. And Raelle gives this woman a pointed glare. So it's off to a fantastic start with the unit, as per usual, with this new woman. And the Imperatrix goes on to explain who she is. So she's the matriarch of the Imperative, and she's responsible for the growth and continuation of the witch bloodlines. And she also flexes to Raelle, "I can flatten you to a pulp with work." So this woman is powerful, and she's in charge of this separate part of the military, which is about making new soldiers in this very weird horse breeding kind of way, as we'll come to see. And she's in charge of all this, and apparently has lots of power because she's just flexing all over the place in this scene.
Yeah, like, I love how she talks to Raelle, that line that she has after that to just put her in her place. "You must be our outcross, the fixer with a rebellious streak."
Yeah. So she gets to that. And so an outcross, what that is, it's a witch born of a witch, obviously, and a non-witch. And so based on this imperative and how they breed witches, this is the offspring, or outcrosses are seen as lesser because they're not bred with another witch. And there's this very prejudiced belief that they get into that if you breed witches with witches, it makes more powerful offspring than if you make outcrosses, which are just mixing bloodlines. So it's this like very prejudiced thing that humans have done before, but it's more so about creating power from powerful people in a magical sense. And so that's like really what the imperative is all about, is breeding witches. And so Raelle is kind of seeing this as abomination to the imperative, and Raelle's attitude is not helping her less than positive view about Raelle to begin with. And so go ahead, sorry.
Such a common theme with Raelle, though.
No, I mean, that's what I'm saying. She loves the army so much that did you expect anything less from Raelle in this situation? It's Raelle's favorite thing. It's forced breeding.
Yeah.
Forced heterosexuality and army stuff. Like, it's her worst nightmare.
Man, matrimonial season.
Yep. And then she moves on over to Tally, and she's like, looks at Tally for a hot second, and she's like, well, are you from the matrifocal compound? Like, does it ooze off of Tally? Because she just
It
looked at her and was like,
does.
you're from the matrifocal compound, aren't you, girl? And Tally's like, yeah. And then the Imperatrix says, eager to please and guileless. Very on point for your upbringing. So highlighting that this Imperatrix is all about witch stereotypes, and there's a lot of social snobbery going on here. Because then
Uh-huh.
she pivots to Abigail and calls her the bellwether, our North Star, the envy of War College. And she's literally saying all of this in a room full of other War College cadets. Like, what the fuck, lady?
Such an
What
arrogant
the fuck?
lady.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. She's flexing all kinds of weird shit and just offending people left and right because she can. Like this imperative thing that she's doing gives her this weird social moral, not moral, but high ground to stand on that makes no sense to me. It's wild.
No, it makes absolutely no sense to me since it's such a bizarre and disgusting way to, preserve preserve work or witches. Like, I think it does more harm than it is doing good for sure.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. And like again, this has happened in human history where like monarchs would
Mm-hmm.
breed for royal blood and that would produce all kinds of recessive diseases because
Yep.
when you make the barrel less and less with genes, you get all the weird creepy genes that come out. So why Imperatrix doesn't understand this is beyond me, but that's her whole job is doing this. So she's all about her job. So I guess good for you, but it's very short-sighted and bigoted and offensive.
Yeah, I imagine she's probably. I imagine one grows up studying to be the Imperatrix and so is brainwashed into that way of thinking, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, I'm sure. Like, no, she is all about this job, and she's like, she gets into it all with Alder later, and she's like, I have more power than you, Alder. Like, whatever this position is, like, gives her a massive ego trip.
Mm-hmm.
And I assume it's been preserved for like centuries, like this type of job. Because again, if you think about it, the government has an incentive to do something like this because if the breeding makes more powerful witches, then there has to be this is like weapons, the weapons technology department. That's what this is. Like she's
Yep.
making more powerful weapons really at the end of the day. So she would have a high esteem in this whole army culture that's going on because her job is making the army more powerful. So she has free reign to go do that. And I guess this is the method that they're doing it by. And it's just gross. It, again, dehumanizes the witches yet
Mm-hmm.
again. And witches are doing it to themselves. So it's fucked up.
Super fucked.
Yeah. And so Imperatrix goes on and explains the reason she's graced them with her presence is because it's matrimonial season that's beginning. So this is when they hand fast the witches to make more witches. And this is like the 5-year contract, the thing we saw with Garrett. So it's that season for all of that stuff to start beginning. And like some of the cadets are murmuring and like, ooh, yay, boys, or whatever. It's not Raelle, but it's some other cadets. Imperatrix explains, tomorrow night you will attend the Paragon reception in Bellwether Hall. So this is like a formal meat market where all the women get to, quote, narrow down the list of men to further your line. So yeah.
This is
There we are.
ugh. I just feel icky
Yeah.
with this.
Yeah, the thing I don't like about it, beside the fact that it kind of again removes the witch's autonomy, it's almost creating this like class system. And you can really see it in this scene that even though like the witches are viewed as like one entity, there really is this class system going on that's being perpetuated with crap like this because of the way she communicates with Abigail, who's like top of the food chain, and Tally's like the easygoing middle person, and then Raelle's at the bottom of this for like a number of reasons. She's an outcross, she's a lesbian, she hates the army, but like you see that like there's so much prejudice just even in the witch community, and it's just crazy.
It's like a caste system.
Yes,
Just
it is. And it starts with like how you're bred, and which again
mm-hmm.
is out of your control. Like who your parents are is out of your control, but it it goes to show that, like, just because you're a soldier, you're not all on equal footing. There's like this societal thing in the witch community that just like kind of determines what path you're going to go down, because you can tell just by this conversation that like Imperatrix is going to pay way more attention to Abigail and who she's hand fasting with than like Tally and Raelle kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so
On a regular, yeah. Uh, so we do not get rid of the Imperatrix yet. Because she's in the next scene where she's catching up with Alder and Petra. And she kind of shades Abigail, saying like she needs to get her. Basically, she's saying she needs to get her shit together and get on board with the hand fasting and the having the babies, because she's fucking around and we need more bellwethers. So that's why they keep poking at Abigail to get hand fasted, because they want more bellwethers.
right, because Imperatrix has a incentive to do that, because if she can produce through her breeding matchmaking the best bellwether ever, like she gets, I'm sure, status for that, or a bonus or some shit. I don't know.
Who knows? Bragging rights, maybe. But Petra assures the Imperatrix that Abigail's going to come around, and she's like, oh, hey, and also, we found more witches, so out and about that we didn't know about. But the Imperatrix dismisses this because power of purity. So they're outcrosses, and it's not as important. They're like all mixed and all that good stuff. Who knows how many times they've been outcrossed with civilians. So they probably she's just like referring to it's like she thinks of these people as garbage because they're down the line so many times as far as crossing with civilians. But Alder kind of tries to keep her back in check by reminding her that the imperative are the ones who lost track of all of these bloodlines. Like, you're not doing your job if there are all these witches out there that we didn't know about. So we're in a big witch energy contest with the Imperatrix and Alder. And Petra's just kind of there witnessing it all. And she's like that meme that's like, oh shit, every time one of them fires a shot. So they're kind of going back a place where Alder's kind of like, know your place, and the Imperatrix is like, I don't report to you.
Yes. What do you think about that?
I think that this is one of those kind of like within the army, a department that's independent from any kind of chain of command. So she has the power to pretty much do whatever she wants within her purview, and Alder can't give her orders. And that kind of has given her this view like, well, I don't have to take anybody's shit or bow down to anybody, so Alder can't do anything to me. And so she's kind of flexing her independence from Alder, who is used to being in charge of everyone. But I'm kind of siding with Alder on this one and being like, check yourself, Miss Imperatrix.
I find it really, I agree with what you're saying. I find it really interesting that you have, here's a witch who, it seems like she doesn't report to Alder directly, which is interesting because Alder is the head of everything. So here's another head witch, and I think that gets reinforced with Petra's line later, where she's like, that's the danger of having no one but yourself to answer to. So like you see this deep arrogance in the Imperatrix, where she can double down on all this bigotry because she reports to no one. So good foreshadowing of just like, I guess, or comment on the dangers of unchecked power.
Yes. And it's bad when it makes Alder look good. So
yeah, very interesting. And then I also have to wonder, like, if the imperative functions separately from the chain of command in the army. Like, did Alder set that up? Like, how did that happen? It's never explained. I'm just curious how that kind of came about.
Me too.
I would imagine Alder would want to oversee everything, so it's just interesting.
I kind of feel like maybe it was something where, Alder does have a sense of, I'm not sure what I'm trying to say, but she has this care for her witches and daughters that comes out a lot and, kind of overshadows the arrogance or whatever. So the only thing I can figure is that maybe when she was setting everything up, that was something that she thought should be, independent from the actual like chain of command in the army. And now she's kind of like regretting that with the Imperatrix, because this particular Imperatrix seems to be a little too big for her britches.
That, and she just lost a bunch of witch bloodlines.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, they're like, God damn it, some soldiers escaped you.
Yeah, like how far back along the line is this? Because I'm assuming that, you have basically an Imperatrix for every generation.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
how far back has your office have screwed up? Like, because there seems to be a lot of witches out there that y'all missing.
Right. Which, not good. Not good.
Not good at all.
Mm-mm.
But we see Alder and Petra, leave after that, and Alder's complaining about how arrogant the Imperatrix is, and Petra's kind of like, really? Hi, here's a mirror.
Hot calling kettle black here.
Yeah. So Alder kind of ignores, like passes over, like she hears it, but she passes over that comment that you mentioned about Petra, or where Petra kind of, calls her out for her own arrogance and asks about the hunt for the Camarilla. So apparently they've sent some plague samples to The Hague, and they're waiting for that to come back result-wise. And then Petra kind of pokes at Alder about the whole, pushing the president deal. And because it kind of ties back into, well, you think the Imperatrix is arrogant and you're over here being a hypocrite about pushing the president and breaking these rules again. Yeah. So who else needs a freaking reality check here, Alder? So it's just like layers and layers of just, is she oblivious to her own hypocrisy? I mean, everybody in this is just amazingly like not self-aware about their own hypocritical behavior. But
I think it's also foreshadowing against, again, the power shift that's going to happen between Petra and Alder here. That like the army needs somebody in charge who isn't in a silo, who's,
doesn't have the blinders on to that degree.
Yeah.
So from that exchange, we go to Raelle, who is singing seeds at the mycelium, like her, just like she's been doing it all day, and Isidore is just putting her through it, and she looks so tired and frustrated, because when the seed that she's singing doesn't work, she asks why it won't do anything, and that sets Isadora off, because it's her, not it. Show it some respect. And Raelle's like, to the mushroom? Isadora's like, look, she's got fungal properties.
Don't talk to my girlfriend.
Don't talk to my girlfriend like that. She's ancient and she responds to stimuli, especially threats. So respect the mushroom, Raelle.
Seriously.
And she kind of explains an interesting thing in that Raelle is more than just a conduit that the mycelium chose. She's formed a relation, like a symbiotic relationship with Raelle. So it's not just that the mycelium is using Raelle. She's, in a way, they're both benefiting from this. Like, they're both it's like it's bonded with Raelle. It chose her to bond with.
Yeah, I think that's the key, is that the mycelium chose this, because when Isadora says that line, there's a face twitch. So she is not okay with the mycelium's choice.
Why not me? Everyone's having their jealous moments she and Abigail having their jealous moments in this whole why the mycelium chooses Raelle thing.
There's a lot of jealousy happening in this episode. I'm jealous of Tally. A lot of people are jealous of the mycelium's choices, you know.
I'm just here for the ride. Just watching along.
But also, like, this, I love this line too, because, you know, the mycelium chose you. Again, Raelle's name, the chosen one.
Mm-hmm.
So she was chosen by the mycelium to wield this very unique power that could possibly change the game. So that's super significant.
And I think it could also be a slight comfort to Raelle that it's not just she was in the right place at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
But it also could be a little more scary because it puts more responsibility on her.
Yeah, and Taylor says in After the Storm, this whole, I agree with you. I think this conversation with Isadora is pretty significant with Raelle, because Taylor says that she's starting to understand, like, the power of the mycelium now, but also it gives her a sense of purpose and responsibility, which is something Raelle hasn't had at all since we've been introduced to Raelle. So it's like a big growth moment, coming to adulthood kind of thing, owning your responsibility kind of thing. So this is a big shift for Raelle that was really imposed on her by the mycelium and almost like forced her to grow up kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. And I did love the way Taylor spoke about it in the After the Storm, and how this is something she's needed since season 1. So
yeah, she's been flailing this whole time. She's been willow collar triggered and just in her grief and just lost. And like, this gives her something, which is ironic because this is the thing that like Abigail craves, but like the mycelium just gives to Raelle.
Because she wasn't seeking it, so.
Oh, I know. She wasn't seeking the power, but it gives her purpose, which Raelle really needed, you know?
It really does. Isadora, you know, is kind of like, let's call it a day kind of thing. And she leaves, but Raelle stays behind, and she's talking to the mycelium in Raelle speak, and just, you know, asking, like, why me? And what's, you know, like, basically just saying, what the heck, man? And the mycelium starts sending out these what is this, like spores? What is like this? I don't know, these like just spore like floating.
Yeah, I think it sends out these spores, and note the color of the spores. They're green, which is blue and yellow, and very gold. So I think it's like a life and death thing, because it's like,
yes,
Scylla, the necro color, and then the fixer gold. So
it sends this out to Raelle, which the tendrils of it kind of wrap around her hand and like come up to her, and she gets this memory flashback of Scylla singing the Death Cap Seed. And she's like, oh, is that what you want? And so she sings that Death Cap Seed, and the mycelium starts to send these tendrils that wrap around her, and they start to enter her mouth and then her throat. And you can see her just kind of like gagging and choking. And she ends up going backwards, you know, to the ground, but she's still singing this seed that warps into this different sound that starts to shake the building. And Isadora is standing there in the middle of her office with her tea, and then drops her mug.
And can this woman not make tea without Raelle ruining it?
No, she can't.
She can't.
So Isadora hot foots it back to the mycelium room, or her place of rest, and she goes through all these drawers in that little island table in the middle and finds a seed box, and she opens it right over Raelle's body, and the mycelium starts to recede because the seed that she's singing is funneled into the box. And once it's in there, Isadora closes it. She's captured that seed sound, and it stops what was happening with Raelle and the mycelium. So you heard her start the death cap seed, and then as soon as the mycelium got down her throat, it changed and morphed into this super powerful thing that starts to shake the frickin' building. So you have a sense of, well, the mycelium is doing something to Raelle, like it's changing her in some way. And I have to wonder what would have happened if Isadora hadn't captured that seed.
Yeah, I mean, we learn later in the episode that what it's doing is part of the symbiosis is that it's colonizing Raelle's body, which is something fungi do, like the ones that can infect and cohabitate in the human microbiome. So this is something that can happen, not magically, but like in real life. But I think perhaps if, to take it a step further, if this had gone on for longer, perhaps the mycelium would have colonized Raelle's entire body, because it only got to like the vocal cords, which again is the mechanism for doing work for a witch. So that is very significant, giving this as a sentient magical mushroom entity.
Right.
So that's, where it needed to go to do what it needs to do, because it seems to have a mind of its own and is using Raelle in a way. It's not symbiosis in the fact that, hey, I give you something, you give me something. I think it's trying to control Raelle in a sense and impart its will onto the world through Raelle.
Mm-hmm.
And perhaps Raelle can harness it when she needs to, and that's the symbiosis. But I think it's a give and take thing here. And I think if it would have gone on for longer, it would have just colonized all of Raelle's body, kind of like it colonized that dead dude in the Tarim Basin. But because Raelle's alive and it's choosing to keep her alive, then it can be more powerful, perhaps, through Raelle as the vessel.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Maybe it would have gotten to her ears as well.
Right. Yeah. I wonder. And so, and like, again, vocal work is very common in American witch work, but as Elliot has said in previous After the Storms, other cultures do gesturing. There's other ways to do magic than just the voice. So I would imagine the mycelium would want to like capitalize on all of Raelle to get all the work,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Why do you think the mycelium wanted Scylla's song? What's up with that?
I have thoughts of many. So if I'm just going like straight in without any crack theory directions, it's Scylla's family has had this seed. Like some families we've seen have had since ancient times have had these seeds songs that they keep. Well, I think that this is one that Scylla's family has passed down, and it's not, how who determines what's canon and not canon? So it's basically the army, right? So I just think that this is one of those things that never got into, like, they didn't want to share it, maybe because it was just like with the Tarim, they don't want to share their songs because they don't want it to be used. And we've seen that Scylla's family were not very pro army, obviously. So we don't know how many generations of them were dodging. Mm-hmm. Their bloodline is known. So at some point they were either known to the army or in the army. And I think that maybe this was just something that their family kept kind of to themselves. And Scylla didn't really think anything of when she showed it to Raelle, because she didn't think Raelle was going to remember that shit, probably. And it was another way to get Raelle's attention. and to kind of show her. And also she just, was starting to like her as well at that point. So I think it was important for Scylla to show Raelle part of her past and herself by showing her the death cap seed. And it's also kind of fateful in the way that I think it's going to tie Scylla to Raelle to the mycelium, and we're going to have the whole life and death totem type situation going on. So I think that in some way, Raelle and Scylla are, kind of like a package deal with the whole mycelium thing. And I think we're going to see her figure more into that in season 3.
I like where you're going with that. I do agree. I think them again because Isadora gives the line like when they're doing all this that or Raelle gives the line that I've done every seed I know, every seed. Basically, they've done every seed in the book. So this is something not on the books, is what you alluded to, which I think is definitely correct. And I think the mycelium wanted this particular song because it asks Raelle, it's like, hey, this is the song I need you to do. So the mycelium knows this song. The mycelium knows what it does, which is fascinating. So it's not just some random song that like Scylla gave out there. Like this is a very powerful seed that like is unknown to the army. And I think it goes back to, in my headcanon, this is again, Scylla, big witch energy, Ramshorn inventing magic that no one knows about. They're like, oh, no one invents magic anymore. And here we are, like, well, it's new magic that no one knows about. But I think it goes back to the the Morrigan myth. Like this is the song that she gave Raelle in that myth is this life and death song. Like that's the song. So they're looking for this rebirth in kind of a sense. And so I think this is a song where mycelium, which is like a fungus, so it's death, is merging with a fixer who is life, and it's creating something new. So it's creating this magic that didn't exist, because we'll come to see after Isadora analyzes this song is unlike anything ever on record. So it's the rebirth of like new magic in a way. So I think that's really the life and death symbolism here. And we will see. I would love to see how exactly this is connected to Scylla, potentially her family, where she learned this, because it could be the origin of something deeply tethered to this whole mycelium thing we don't know about because we're still learning things about it. But I think it's very significant the mycelium asked Raelle for this particular song so that it could colonize her.
Yes. And later on, when we get down the line, I'll share my crack theory.
Share it. We are in the land where we have no season 3, and unless you want to save it for our season 3 speculation episode, like muse now. Now we have nothing. This is the time.
Well, it's just people like a spoiler alert for one of the episodes down the line, but
hey, man, if you want to save it, save it. But we want to hear. We want to hear your theories.
I'm just afraid it's going to get like I'll forget about saying it, but just basically just that my crack theory, and I mean crack. Like, do I think this is going to happen? No, I think it would be really cool and neat if it did, but I don't think it's going to fit into the whole storyline. But it would be really cool if, like, because somewhere way back when somehow there was a lost bloodline that was related to Alder that turned out to be Scylla's line.
Yeah, possibly.
So that's my crack theory.
Yeah, I love it.
Because Alder and the mycelium will find more about how they're related to one another later. And Scylla having this seed that the mycelium sought out, like the only seed that would, create this new magic, as you put it. It's just interesting.
Mm-hmm. It leaves many questions.
That, and I'm just obsessed with Scylla, so.
Understandable. Aren't we all? So yes, more of Scylla, please, and her backstory. Mm-hmm. Elliot. So many questions. But for now, we're going to leave the Life and Death Brigade and go over to the Imperatrix, who's running over the pedigree board with Abigail. And
Good
going on
Lord,
and on.
all those ribbons.
Yep, it's the witch sex board that she's so proud of. And she's going over with Abigail about the integrity of the bellwether line, how it's her greatest triumph, and literally pointing to the fuck board of all the bellwethers and how Abigail got here. And Abigail's like, great. She's like, listen, I'm more than just some traits because of breeding. Like, I'm Abigail. I should.
I worked hard,
Abigail.
bitch.
Yeah, she works hard, and Abigail and the parents are like, bitch, you got skills because I gave you skills because of who your parents were. So slow your roll. Breeding lets us win the war, dear. And oh dear. Yeah. And then Imperatrix gets on what her big mighty plans are for Abigail, and she wants her to handfast with Gregorio. Because again, their connection is astrological. So here it is again.
Jesus Christmas.
I know.
We're back to this.
And Abigail is with us, and she's like, oh god, this again. And Imperatrix senses Abigail's not having this, and it's just like mother, like daughter. Because Petra had her flighty too. And flighty? Petra? Rebellious Petra? I would like flashbacks of this, please.
Yeah, please.
I would like flashbacks of this. And so Imperatrix let's it drop. She had a bargain with Petra, apparently, when it was like handfasting season for her, to get her to narrow down to the 3 men to father Abigail. So pause. So Petra was flighty about the whole hand-fasting shit, and then ends up with 3 dudes to make Abigail.
Yeah.
Love it. Big witch energy, Petra. But this also, like, alludes to what the male witches do. So it's not breeding in our sense, where it's like 1 man, 1 woman, use their stuff to make a baby. They're trying to pass traits on to make a witch. So apparently that works a little bit differently, where, like, the men can, like, somehow selectively pass on traits to the witch that's being, I don't know, growing, I guess. So it's never fully explained how this works, but I mean, this is part of what the male witches do off screen, you know?
Yeah, how do they...
I don't know.
Is there some kind of seed song they do when they're getting down and dirty, and just a combination of things? And, like, why is everybody else just got 1 dude?
Yeah, again, I think this is part of the societal prejudice crap. So, like, again, the bigger names, the bigger bloodlines get multiple witch dudes. Because the whole goal is to make that bloodline as powerful as possible. And so, like, Imperatrix is explaining this. So, like, yeah, I chose the best 3 dudes that I got your mom to settle on. Because it's part of her master plan. Like,
why does Charvel only have 1 dude?
I don't think Charvel was high up the bellwether.
Like, does she get more as she goes?
Or was Petra just like, Petra was just like, I'm getting 3 dudes.
Yeah, I think Petra was just like, I can't decide between these 3, so I'm getting them all.
Yeah, kind of how, like, Abigail, anytime she goes anywhere, gets 2 dudes. That's Petra's energy. Yeah. She got that trait from Petra.
That's the trait that got passed on to them.
Yes, multiple dudes. I don't want 1. I'm getting more than 1. So,
yeah,
like mother, like daughter. Like you said, Imperatrix, your words, not mine. And so Abigail's like, cool, my mom got to narrow down her dudes. Let me do that too. And Imperatrix is like, ugh, you mean earthquake boy.
It's so funny that she calls him that.
I think it's funny because Abigail's like, how did you know? And it's like, girl, you shook all of Fort Salem. How does anyone not know?
Exactly.
Come on now.
You were there.
We were all there. We had to witness this through tally. Like, everyone knows, Abigail, everyone. And Imperatrix is just like, girl, I got spies everywhere. A bellwether handfasting, not someone in the military, that is an abomination. Of course I'm keeping tabs on you. Like, you're my pride and joy. Do you not see my sex board? Obviously. And she's like, listen, these are desperate times, Abigail. Your timetable is being accelerated, and you will be handfasted by the end of this year. So
that's so bullshit.
Yeah, it's more loss of control over her life for Abigail. Like, she's being forced back into that role that she was in at the beginning of the show that we've seen her actively try and step out of, you know?
Yep, you're nothing more than a womb, Abigail. Basically what that says to her.
Yeah, I mean, because bellwethers are more than just great leaders. They're the pride and joy of this witch breeding stuff. So it's back to being a bellwether and not being Abigail.
Mm-hmm.
So that's fun. So everybody's trying to be handfested off, but the matriarch of all this is like, Abigail, you will get handfested, like, by the end of this. So poor Abigail.
Like, you gonna have some babies.
Yeah, Abigail's gonna have some feelings about that we'll see later. But for now, we shoot on over to the unit again, and Raelle is talking about what's going down with the mycelium, and she's lamenting that, like, ugh, it went inside my mouth. Everything tastes weird now. Which, again, is highlighting the fact that the mycelium is colonizing her and it's changing Raelle's anatomy, altering her senses. So this is the side effect of that symbiosis. And she lets it drop that the seed sound she made after the mycelium colonized her, like, Isadora is running that against all the seeds in the library. So this is what Isadora is doing off screen right now as we speak. She's with a good pot of tea that no one has interrupted, and she's in the witch library trying to track down this seed, and she's far speeching all her scientist friends, trying to figure it out and exhausting everything to match the seed sound. So Isadora is doing some seed research with a nice pot of tea off screen right now.
Yup.
And so Abigail is venting her frustration, like, oh, this is cool, what's happening to you and Raelle and Tally, but, like, I'm over here having no choice in the fact that I have to have babies and I have no choice over the father. And Raelle's like, listen, Abigail, I get that you're frustrated, that you seem like you have no control, but Tally and I also have no control over what's happening to us either. I didn't choose a magical fungus to colonize my body and do whatever it's doing to me. And Tally is not choosing to have these sexy war dreams. Like, all of this is happening to us. Again. So, unit being divided by their own side quests, but, like, it's out of all of their control, all these things that are happening to them. It's just like, Abigail's like, I'd rather be in your position than mine, but nobody has control right now.
Yeah, it's just, like what Elliot said in After the Storm, they're pulling them apart and to put them back together in a way.
Yeah, they're all going off on their little side quests so they can have their individual growth.
Mm-hmm.
And it will make them stronger in the end. But I think the common theme that keeps happening with all these characters is that no one's in control of this. This is things that are just happening to them outside of their control because of other people, like other forces, like trying to use them. Like the mycelium has its agenda. It's trying to use Raelle. The matrimonialist or whoever, the Imperatrix, is trying to use Abigail to make the next bellwether and take bragging rights. And then memories are using Tally for their own end that we'll see later. But, like, they're being used in a certain way and going on these quests. They're being forced down.
I wonder how much, as far as Tally's seeing these memories, how much of it is connected to her being a very powerful knower, and how much is just how she connected to Alder and how she was not trained to be a biddy. Like, I think it's probably a combination of things, but it's just crazy that she's seeing these memories, and it doesn't seem like we haven't heard anything about the other biddies having this kind of situation, because none of them were unbiddied, obviously, but
none of them were great knowers either.
Yeah, exactly.
They probably had a certain skill set that they were more in tune with that was very different from Tally's. And I agree with you. I think her knowing is what makes her so unique for this position, and that's partially, I think, why she's getting these memories. I think the reason she's getting these memories in particular goes back to the first episode this season, where we saw Alder looking really shook before she goes to sleep, like really distressed. And I really get the sense that this particular set of memories is in the forefront of her mind. Like, it's something that she really regrets and has a lot of shame over and thinks about a lot, particularly what these dreams mean in the present situation of the world that she's in, fighting the spree and all that. I think this is something that it's like her deep, dark secret, and it's on the forefront of her mind. And I think that's why Tally can see this. So I think in a way, it's like Alder's consciousness wants this to get exposed because it's weighing on her. So I think that's, like, quote unquote, the manipulation part that's happening to Tally, and why this is being, like, this set of memories is being given to her to uncover the truth, because I think part of Alder kind of needs this to come out.
Yep, so, I agree.
Yeah.
Agree. All right. So we get to see for the first time Tally and Penelope in their new mentor mentee relationship. So Penelope's lamenting that she's sucking at seeds. And the reason is we uncover is because she's singing like they teach you to sing in what any vocal coach would teach you to sing this way. So Tally's encouraging her to sing with her throat, and that's opposite, or that's different from how you get taught to sing. So she's kind of having to go against her training, and that's why the seeds aren't working for her, because she's not doing it right, basically, as a witch, because she has never been introduced to the fact that she has different vocal cords than actual civilians. So it does not have the same effect on her to sing from her throat as it does civilians. And so Tally's kind of giving her advice and encouragement about this. It's kind of funny because they're talking about how she melted that glass in the church, and Penelope calls it Satan's high C. That just cracked me up so hard. I love that line.
That was so good.
and we go from me being super amused to that to me being super sad, because Penelope talks about how she saw her father's expression change and go from being super proud of her and her talent to being not seeing her the same way and seeing her as an other and kind of something to be feared or hated. So that had to really hurt.
Yeah.
And still hurts, because they're having the deterioration of their relationship because of who she is. So her father now distrusts and thinks of her differently because of that. It's just incredibly sad. And
Yeah.
it's even more so that it echoes what happens to people in real life.
Yeah, her line was, he went from encouraging me to looking at me like he didn't know me. And to me, it sounds more like homophobic parents. You know, where it's like, you were my kid 1 second, and then I learned this new thing about who you are, and all of a sudden, it's like, I don't
I
even
don't
know
even
you
know
anymore.
you. Yeah.
Exactly. I'm like, Tally really lets, like, cements that with her next line, where she's like, you can't do this if you hate who you are. And it's like this
Mm-hmm.
homophobia kind of talk. And I think that's how I read a lot of these things that Eliot puts in here. It's mirroring like homophobia.
Very much. And Tally also talks a little bit about her mom and why she joined the army as a way to connect to Penelope and kind of help her process what's happening with her dad. And it just makes me sad for her all over again, because it's not like Penelope, but it's the same in that her mother can't support her in what she's doing. So it's just kind of sad with the parents all around. But then she helps Penelope in that she tells her to remember how it felt when she sang that song in the church, and how the music carried her. And with this advice, she lets go of trying to make the seed work and just sings. And that's when it happens. And she ends up cracking the glass window in her room. So Tally helped Penelope, get a hold of how to use her power, and helped her kind of transition out of that, a little more out of that civilian mindset and into the witch mindset.
Yeah.
So
Because yeah, the
that's
goal with Penelope is to just like embrace who she is. Because I feel like part of Penelope really wants to, but it's like because she seems so excited to like be a part of being like a part of witchhood. So it's like She really needs that like friend or like mentor like that Tally's stepping into. You know?
Absolutely. So she needs Tally, and I think Tally needs her in the respect that it gives Tally a way to pass on and something to also keep Tally busy.
Yeah. And I think Tally too, like again, Tally sees herself in Penelope. Like, I wish somebody
Absolutely.
did this for me, kind of thing.
Yeah. So it gives her a little bit of comfort in that respect that she's helping Penelope out. After that, we go to guess who? Scylla and Anacostia, who are hanging out with Bonnie and Shane, the couple from that Scylla had befriended. So during this, of course, they're going by their little undercover names, Justine and Amelia. And they're walking into the living room, and on the television is footage of Penelope. So, bookend those two things with the last scene in this. And it just transitions us into this scene where Bonnie's talking about how she feels bad for the vice president, and and for it to happen at a church. Like Penelope in her witchhood has stained the Christian church, which is very different from how we've seen Christianity and witch work mix in the session, like with Raelle. So this is interesting. So this is very much sort of a call to our current type of right-wing mindset with how Christianity, and we'll say it's a representation for homosexuality with Penelope's story. So Scylla looks super uncomfortable.
As she should.
She should. And Shane says his daughter is in the army now learning to kill. And he says this like it's gross. Like, she's learning to kill. Shane! Now we're on just like, good Lord, hypocrisy row this episode.
Yes.
But he starts to go on about how the army isn't doing enough to stop the spree at home. They're fighting them in foreign places, but not enough at home. And he says, like, this is the most American part of this episode. He talks about American institutions, malls, ball fields, restaurants. We got to go out. So this is kind of reminds me of the mindset during the pandemic. Like, we deserve to be able to go do whatever the hell we want. Like, go eat at freaking Chick-fil-A. Yeah. So we're going to go out whether, whatever's going on. And you guys need to get your witches in control because this is impeding the way we function and we don't have to want to think about you.
Yeah, I love how it's like, well, it's impeding on our way of life. But no one's like, the witches can't just go out and do any of those things ever.
Exactly.
Because they're enslaved by your government to fight on your behalf.
Thank you.
So, fuck you. But yeah,
witches are less than us, so they don't deserve to do these things.
Well, I mean, that's the mindset here. They're not human. They're not viewing the witches as humans. They've disassociated them. They're like, we, the civilians, are the humans. They are the other. They are the weapons of war. Like, they don't see them as human beings who've had their autonomy taken from them. They're objects. They're objects. Yeah, they're a means to an end. And because it's not serving their agenda at this moment, they're like, well, fuck them. It's ridiculous.
America.
Yeah, this is conservative ideology at its finest.
Mm-hmm. Bonnie goes on to say that they had to tell Brianna, their daughter, that she couldn't play with her friend Tiffany anymore because they found out she's a witch. And so that makes Anacostia and Scylla kind of perk up and be like, well, how did they know that she was a witch? And turns out that like Bonnie says, well, my friend says there's a test. And then the said friend arrives in the form of Jack, the guy that we saw at the bar with the big wad of cash. So he's back, and Bonnie tells us that he helps organize the meetups and all this stuff. So we kind of get a glimpse of this dude is connected to the Camarilla, the direct connection to the Camarilla. So he's kind of the person that they need to pin down as far as what he's doing, where he's going, and what's going on with his little mission. And when Jack shows up, he and Shane go into a room, out of sight, and Bonnie is left in to talk to Scylla and Anacostia. And so Scylla's kind of trying to play along, and she's like, well, at least you don't have to worry about Brianna, as in her being a witch. And Bonnie says, I don't know what we'd do if we wound up with a Tiffany. So there's your callback to our title, a Tiffany. And what we were just talking about, where Tiffany, now that she's a witch, is no longer a human being. She's a Tiffany.
Yep. They're othering children. Disgusting.
Fucking ridiculous. So then Anacostia and Scylla, when they leave, are talking about how Jack Orsatti, the fellow from the bar that came over while they were there at the house, is the link to the Camarilla, and Anacostia, or that's what Anacostia suggests. And then Scylla kind of banters back because she's like, listen, Amelia, you were kind of laying it on thick, like letting them know that you clocked Orsatti from the bar. Like, don't you think that's kind of obvious? And I'm going, Scylla, are you trying to tell Anacostia that she's a bad spy?
Girl.
Are you trying to give her spy lessons?
You've
Scylla!
won world's worst spy this whole time, girl. Hot calling kettle.
Exactly. Everybody's being a hypocrite today. I'm like, Scylla, why? So Orsatti comes out and gets in his car, and Anacostia has this fucking amazing line that she comes back to Scylla with. Do you want me to run him off the road, Justine?
Yes, Justine.
Yes.
Do it. She's us in that moment.
And then Scylla's like, just drive. And we're deep into quarter horn banter territory, and I'm in love.
I love it so much.
So good. So in that scene, we learned that Orsatti is our connection to the Camarilla, and we need to find out what he's up to. And that the children are being tested
somehow
to see if they're witches somehow. Yeah. So we got to find out what's up with that.
Can we just go back to the conversation in Bonnie's house for a second?
Of course.
Because I want to talk about the Shane line the Shane stuff that pissed me off the most.
Oh, Jesus.
So there's a line where Bonnie is talking to Scylla, Justine and Amelia about Shane, and she basically comments that this whole not our daughter stuff gives Shane an outlet for his frustrations. And like, boom, like there it is. This is how all this crap always starts. It's like these powerful, rich individuals prey on these vulnerable people, playing into their hatred and prejudices. And so Shane is just this underling to like these higher people who are using him to their agenda. And so we see that kind of with Orsatti, who's like the next link up. But it's kind of the thing showing that like Shane is a frustrated person. Like, I can't go to the mall. I can't do what I want without potentially being targeted by these others who might kill me for quote unquote no reason. So instead of like fixing the problem, like, I don't know, make a new law, get rid of conscription, change the problem, they're just placing blame on the others. And this group, the Camarilla, is creating scapegoats out of these witches. And this happens in real life where you have all these frustrated people who don't really have power, and they need to band together as a collective, and those that want to manipulate them give them a scapegoat, like immigrants, people of color, the gays. Now it's witches. Someone like Shane, who has no power really to look down on. And it gives Shane this sense of control and power over these lessers. And it's just such a social commentary on the way humans are kind of manipulated through this scapegoating thing. And you can just see it through Shane's prejudice. Like, he has an outlet for his frustrations. And I think it also like kind of parallels the spree too, where it's like an outlet for, Scylla says, gave me a place to put my anger. That's kind of what Shane's doing with the Camarilla. Like, this is an outlet for him to do something with his anger towards the others. And I get, and in the line too, where, Bonnie says, I don't know what I would do if like my daughter was a Tiffany. Like, the way she says that and kind of answers it, it gives me the sense that like Bonnie either knows or has no idea if there's like, she has witch blood. And I think she's terrified that like, what if my daughter is one? And what would my raging, bigoted husband do if he found out?
It would be very interesting.
It would be bad. Very bad.
It would be very bad, but it would be very interesting if his daughter, I mean, gosh, that's so...
Because that goes one of two ways. It's either Shane sticks to his ideology and he's like, well, my daughter is not my daughter anymore, which is what we're starting to see with VP Silver, and like, fuck it, she's an other, gotta kill her. Or it's the hypocritical thing they do, where it's like, it's fine to sling all this hatred when it's other people, but when it's my daughter, it's another story. Like, you can't take her in the army, you can't kill her. Like, again, it's that hypocrisy that tends to happen, like when the bigoted people are put in the position where it's like, okay, now it's on you, this othering, and they're like, well, I'm not an other, like, so I feel bad for Bonnie, because she's in this, I mean, yeah, she's kind of going along with it, but I feel like she's being brainwashed by Shane, but like at the end of the day, she's trapped now by being with this guy who could, if her daughter was a witch, like, that could end horribly for her daughter.
It really could. Like, I feel like Bonnie is not as brainwashed into this as Shane is, and a lot of her behavior is just trying to pacify and cater to him.
Yeah.
Which is so sad.
Right. That's why I think that line is so important from Bonnie, where she's like, it's for him to like put all his frustration. It's not for Bonnie. Bonnie is not saying we believe it, I believe in this. She's saying
exactly.
It gives him something to keep busy so he doesn't flash out at me.
I feel like Shane's very much our classic, I have no power, so I have to exert power over the people that I have trapped, aka Bonnie and my daughter.
Yeah, people who are lesser than me, people that I can have power over. Yeah, he's an abuser. That's what this is. It's gross.
Yep.
But social commentary there. So
sad and also scary.
Sad, but also I think that exchange is very, very important and highlights, again, this is another group of people being extreme, like just like the spree we're doing. They think they have their reasons, they think they are righteous, and that's kind of how this stuff goes. These people get very brainwashed by their emotions, So
absolutely.
Here we are.
Blech.
Blah, indeed. And from there we go over to the Imperatrix. And she's in her office, I guess. I guess she has an office on base.
Yeah, like, what? Has she been here the whole time?
I don't know. Like, Petra clearly doesn't get an office. She's, like, doing musical offices every time she stops by. But I guess the Imperatrix has her own office.
Well, she's the Imperatrix.
She is the Imperatrix. She got her own office. And she's got Tally and Raelle in there. And she's like, I don't know what to do with you two. Like, girl, no one does. But
yeah.
But
nobody knows.
Then she's like, Tally, as our Mary begot, our traditions are new to you. And so I thought that phrase was really, really weird.
It was. It is.
I wanted to explain that for anyone who may be like, what the fuck is she talking about? So Mary begot is this old English term that means either child born out of wedlock. So I wonder if this is a commentary on the matrifocal compound. Like, maybe they don't do hand fasting the way they do in the high Atlantic culture, and it's just like witches have babies and they just have babies, and it's not really this like strategic breeding thing the Imperatrix is doing, and they're just more like kind of like the actual like hippie free love society thing.
Right.
When that, because like there's no men in the compound, so I don't know how it works there. It's not really explained, but it doesn't seem like they go through this pedigree thing in the matrifocal compound. So maybe it's a comment there that Tally was born out of wedlock in this whole like hand fasting sense.
Right.
Or there was this book by Julia Hearns called The Mary Begot, and it's this fantastical tale of English folk religion. And there's a quote where it says, like, the Mary Begot is a child conceived on May morning believed to have powers of witchcraft. So maybe it's just kind of this, like, witch commentary that came from this book that they use the term, but I think it's more of a comment on what goes on in the matrifocal compound compared to this like high Atlantic stuff the Imperatrix is all in.
Right.
So she's kind of shaming Tally a little bit, but she's being like, it's okay, girl. You didn't grow up in this culture. You're excused. And Tally's like, being Tally, is like, I'm a quick study. I'll get it. Which is what she said to Alder when she was pitied.
Girl, no.
So there goes Tally.
You're getting shade thrown at you. Don't just buy into it.
I know, but like, good on Tally is always like, I can learn, I can be better. So Tally, the quick study. And Imperatrix is like, yeah, great, good. And then you, Raelle, you're the mystery. You're a fixer from a heavy line, but now augmented. I don't know what that means. I think she means the mycelium, but yeah. I'm not entirely sure.
Well, because she knows everything, so she'd obviously know about the whole mycelium.
Yeah, she definitely got spies in the necro lab, so she's aware. And Lesbian Jesus is like, listen, I'm not interested in hand fasting or men. Hydrate yourselves for that.
Love it. Hydrate for Lesbian Jesus.
I love how Raelle's always got to be like, let me reintroduce myself.
Hi, I'm gay.
Hi, I'm gay. Did your spies not tell you that? And Imperatrix is like, of course I knew that, and that's cute, but you're required, Lesbian Jesus, to fulfill your obligations, aka make me more soldiers.
I'm like, have you guys never heard of like syringes and
no, well,
there are other ways to do that. Like if you
maybe it takes the magic out of it.
Maybe I don't know, but come on.
It's gross.
Surely you could have come up with a way.
Yeah, and Elliot makes it very clear that like they're not quote like forced to make babies, but they're like super encouraged. So it's like one of those things where you're like voluntold to do it.
Yeah, pressured until you kind of give in type thing.
Exactly. So Raelle's like, whatever. But then Imperatrix takes a dig at Will Collar for not hand fasting properly, and Raelle gets immediately mama triggered.
Yeah, you should know not to freaking pull out the mama card, because that triggers Raelle like nobody's business.
I don't think this bitch cares. She's so entrenched in her bigotedness and is high and mighty about it that she just can say whatever she wants. This is power unchecked. Power unchecked. Because then Raelle, who's augmented, gets all triggered. And she's like, listen, my mom's a hero, and I'm going to make my own arrangements. And Imperatrix gets on her, even double downs on this, and in mother tongue calls her an insolent child. And Raelle, augmented Raelle, flips on her big witch energy and insults her right back in mother tongue, a language she miraculously suddenly knows how to speak because of the mycelium, because it's an ancient language, like the ancient mushroom. And she says, an insolent child who has more power than you could ever imagine, you mothballed sea hag. So, partial animal insult, talking about moths.
Love it.
And Tally's face in the background is like, oh shit. She doesn't know what to do with this exchange.
Yeah.
And just runs after Raelle, who like witch mic drops out of there.
I love Tally's face, and she's just like, her mouth kind of opens and closes, and she's like, awkward.
I'm just gonna leave. Bye. And the Imperatrix just looks this like combination of like impressed and pissed off at the same time.
She's impissed.
She is.
I love that scene so much. And I know that people just fangirl over that whole scene hardcore, and I don't blame them. I do too. Because Raelle speaking mother tongue like she's done it since birth is just kind of super attractive and impressive. So, and calling her a mothballed old sea hag. So wonderful.
Again, partial animal insult.
Yeah.
But go Raelle with your big witch energy. Love to see it. Love to see it.
Love it. So we're gonna go over with Tally and Abigail. So we're gonna add Abigail in and go to combat training. So since the Camarilla have ways to take witches' work out of the equation, the War College cadets are getting kind of refocused on hand-to-hand combat because they'll need that more now that they may not be able to use their work in situations with the Camarilla. So they're kind of, I have a feeling that this is something that isn't taught as much. Hand-to-hand combat was taught in basic, and then once they get to War College, it's their training, their individual training in their areas and learning more things like mother tongue and all that stuff. So it's less focused on in War College, but now they're going to go back and make them do more hand-to-hand combat training since the Camarilla have entered the equation. And that's why we're getting this scene where we get Gregorio. They're all paired up basically by the combat instructor, who is kind of walking around like some of the other instructors do, with just like this kind of haughtiness, if you will, and throwing her weight around. And so she's paired up Gregorio and Abigail, which is funny.
Can she not read the room, this instructor? What the fuck?
This
is something Lieutenant Tata would do. She'd be like, this is going to be fun. You two, together.
She would like do this on purpose just to see what happened. So exactly. Gregorio and Abigail have their little sparring match, but it's less of a sparring match and more of Abigail beating the shit out of Gregorio. And she just takes his ass down, basically. And she's doing this because she's frustrated because of him. Because he's like, did I do something? And she's like, no, this isn't like about you. It's because of you. So she's taking out her frustration about being a womb for Gregorio's seed on him by beating the crap out of him in combat training. So we get that visit into Abigail's frustration, and I love Gregorio. He's such a sweet guy. He's just kind of like, I'm just here existing, being a, safety school with a penis.
He's just trying to be a good soldier.
Yeah,
he didn't ask for all this astrological
and a good friend. So then we go down the line, and it's Tally versus M in their sparring match. In the first go around, M wins handily, and so one of them had like a baton and the other one had a knife. So M had the knife and Tally had the baton. So they switch weapons, and when Tally picks up the knife, it's no longer a knife, it's a machete covered in blood. So she's having one of those flashbacks to the memory thing, like in her dream, because the rebel people that Alder's unit was fighting had machetes as their weapons.
Yep.
And obviously it would be covered in blood because they all fought each other, or because of the seed that the dashing soldier dropped from the bottle.
She sure did.
So Tally's totally thrown off, and she's staring at it, and she's, says that it's covered in blood and whatnot. And M is kind of like, there's nothing on the knife. Are you okay, Tally? But it's interesting because now, up to now, really, we've seen these dreams or these memories as dreams, but they're coming to her in pieces while she's awake now.
Yeah, we're more in like hallucination territory, which is different.
Exactly. So it's coming to her while she's awake, and you have to think that it's either her power, like she's getting closer to the truth and whatnot, and it's kind of gaining in power a little bit. So that would be very disconcerting, and we're going to see that kind of continues throughout the episode. So it's just there's basically that scene, so we get to see Tally having an awake hallucination from Alder's memories.
And I think it's like, again, an escalation of her loss of control over the situation too, because that's like the theme among the unit this episode. So that's combat training. And
Woo!
meanwhile, back at the mycelium experiment, Raelle is joined by Alder and Isadora in front of the mycelium. And Isadora gleefully opens that box with the seed sound and plays it for everyone to hear. And she says, the sound you made is composed of thousands of layered voices. So let's pause for a second. So it wasn't just Raelle's voice making that seed. Thousands of voices. Put a pin in that when we learn more about the mycelium. And Alder comments that she's never heard something that complex or beautiful before. So this seed with the thousands of voices is something that's just like brand new to magic that's happening. So it's a big scientific discovery. So as you can imagine, Isadora's thrilled. Alder's like, holy fuck, this could be the big breakthrough for defeating the Spree, the Camarilla, everybody. And Raelle is just confused. She's like, how is this possible? I have one voice. How was this thousands of voices? And Isadora confirms for us by inspecting Raelle's vocal cords that her anatomy is different. The mycelium has colonized that. So it's augmenting Raelle's voice when she speaks. We saw it altering her taste. It's causing this thousands of voices. So it has the power to do that. It's why she can suddenly speak mother tongue, all this stuff. And Alder asks Raelle, cool, you have all these new powers. The mycelium's working through you. Sing to it again. And she says, we need every soldier, every weapon for what's coming. Because that's where Alder's mind is. She's like, you're a soldier, you're my new weapon. I need you to do this. And Raelle's like, fine. She gets up there and sings the death cap seed again. And we see those mycelial threads coming out of the wall like they were earlier. Only this time, instead of like attacking Raelle's vocal cords, her eyes turn very bright blue, which Scylla's color. I think this is like power of death. This was happening to Raelle. And she harnesses the threads coming from the mycelium and pushes them off to the right. And those threads move in that direction. So Raelle's kind of controlling this. And they take out an entire wall in the lab. And you can see, and two things are worth noting that happen when that happens. Number one, you can see that the mycelium is much bigger than just that cut out wall space. It like extends beyond this room. Raelle's like, wow, she's real big. And she a big mushroom. And Isadora uses her big brain to put this all together and notes the other cool thing that happened here. She's noting in this room, the mycelium is destroying inorganic matter. Whereas in the Tarim, we only saw the mycelium take over organic matter and change it. That was like the dead people that sprouted into mushrooms. So through Raelle, the mycelium now has augmented powers of its own where it can destroy organic and inorganic matter. So that's important for war purposes. And Alder puts that together and she's like, hey, Raelle, can you do that shit again? And instead of looking like horrified and frustrated, Raelle actually looks very determined and confident in this moment. So this is that like sense of purpose restored to Raelle kind of thing.
Yes. So I think Raelle is just like, okay, I feel the power now. And because if you kind of remember back when she was in 109 at the end of last season, when she was talking to Scylla in the dungeon, and was like, I don't feel powerful. Like she's never felt powerful. So she's never had that feeling. But after Scylla, she especially felt lost and powerless. So now she's got that feeling of power for probably
for the first time in her life. And
see it.
Yeah. I think that Raelle always had power, she just never knew.
Exactly.
Now she's becoming aware of this Well, it's a different kind of power, but she's understanding she is powerful and can do stuff with it,
which is what Scylla was telling her all along. Is like you don't know how powerful you are. Like, hi.
Yeah, apparently multiple people have seen this, like Anacostia somehow, which I still don't understand. But like again, Raelle has been oblivious or just didn't care to really pay attention to her own power.
Even Willa knew how powerful she was going to be. Scylla knows how powerful she was, and like you said, Anacostia sees it. And I think that in a sense, so does Abigail now, because she has more of an appreciation for power than like say Tally does. But I think that she saw it before the mycelium happened. Like, she saw how powerful Raelle was, and actually she kind of used it for her own kind of means with Adele. So
to save Kalita, exactly. So Raelle is starting to understand she can be powerful, is the key takeaway.
Yes, it's been leading up to this, so very interesting development.
Indeed.
But okay, so we're gonna get the unit back together again, and Tally's kind of bummed that Raelle's going to miss out on the reception, but to Raelle, that's like the only good thing about her weapons test is that she gets to miss the meat market.
I know. She's like, I'm missing the heterosexuality. Damn it!
Damn! I don't have to be there for the hits.
I have mushroom things to do. Damn
no one's gonna force me to talk to men. Damn!
I know. It's almost like being an experiment has benefits, Raelle.
Yeah, almost. So we get... I want to point out also in this scene, you can tell how rough Taylor's voice sounds. So who knows how many takes she had to do singing in this episode. Because you could just tell she's kind of losing her voice at the point where she's doing this scene. So, man, that poor girl. But it's very apparent in like a couple of scenes in this episode that how much she had to do vocal work. But she's in the process of pinning her mother's battle charm on her uniform because she wants that extra little bit of luck for her weapons test. You can just kind of feel how nervous she is throughout this exchange. And Abigail's just, back to being unhappy about her uterus being the sum total of her worth. And talking about, again, like she wants to make a name for herself. So she feels like she's living someone else's life. Or someone, what did she say? She's living someone else's life other than your own.
Yeah, I mean, basically that was it. And that, again, that was the realization Abigail had in season 1, where she's like, I'm just in this bellwether shadow. But I feel like she was saying it in the context of like, don't you guys all kind of feel that? It's not just me.
Yeah.
Because none of them have control over what's happening to them right now.
Yeah, exactly. I just love how done Abigail is in this scene, which is the opposite of what she usually is. And Raelle's in kind of her position of she's getting ready to go be powerful and all in battle. And they've literally swapped body language.
Yeah,
in this scene. So because you see like Abigail like casually laying back and just being
I don't want to do this army thing.
And Raelle, and Raelle's like a little more gung-ho about stuff and getting ready to go to battle, basically. So it's interesting to see them swap everything in this scene. And I think it's really cool that they did that. Because I imagine it's like they had a conversation about that at some point.
Yeah, I would think so.
So, because Abigail's body language is so different from normal Abigail. So, and vice versa. So that's a really cool thing about this scene. It's just little things. Like, there's little things about this show that I freaking love so much. That you catch if you really pay attention. It's just so cool.
It is. It's super fun. I feel bad for Tally, though, because she's like the third wheel again.
Yeah,
She's just in
again, poor
Tallyland.
fucking Tally's the heart of the unit, but she's also the third wheel a lot. So
Yeah,
poor Tal.
I know, and Elliot kind of talked about it because like she's further like on the outs with them because Abigail and Raelle kind of shared this witch bomb thing. They still kind of share the experience a little bit, but like Tally was like biddied and like completely removed from the two of them. So poor Tally.
Poor Tally. She's always having some problems in that department with her unit. So we go from there to Scylla and Anacostia having followed Orsatti to 4 different schools. So obviously he's hitting these kids while they're, in the government institution of school. And Anacostia is like, well, I'm going to go find out what's going on. But Scylla stops her because Scylla has her lighter. And so instead of going in as herself, she can go in as with a different face. And then she says, besides, you were a base brat and I know my way around these places. Scylla, hun, you letting your, like, this a little bit of arrogance and it coming off of Scylla right there. And it's like, girl.
She has no spy legs to stand on. I don't know where this energy really comes from, honestly, but
I think it comes from insecurity about her spyingness or obliviousness to her bad spying.
I think it's mostly she's annoyed that she has to work with somebody else because Scylla is better as a solo artist, and so here she's being forced to play nice with Anacostia, who she has animosity towards. So I think she's annoyed. She's like, leave me alone. Let me go do my solo missions. I work best when I'm by myself, which debatable, but in Scylla's mind, that's what she thinks is happening. That's
a very good point. Yes. So she's used to working alone and Anacostia is cramping her style, basically.
Yes.
So Anacostia's just like, just be careful. And Scylla's like, you don't trust me? And Anacostia comes back with, I don't trust the situation, which is incredibly astute because why would you trust the situation? You don't want her going in there alone. And as much as like Anacostia is, still to some degree sees Scylla as part of the cadet type thing. And I feel like she feels protective of Scylla. So I think that's part of what's going on, along with the fact that she thinks Scylla's just too quick to rush into things.
Yeah, Anacostia has the brain cell right now. That's what's happening.
Yeah,
she's like,
she does.
We don't know what's on the other side of those walls.
Listen, calm down.
I've seen
chill.
You spy. You're not the best spy. Like, calm down. Let's think for a second.
Yeah.
So I was like, nope, they're just going to burn my face and leave. Bye.
Yeah, bye-bye. So she absolutely does burn her face and biff on out of there. And she goes into the school as a middle-aged woman. Can I point out the wardrobe thing? Because Justine's wardrobe is so different from Scylla's wardrobe. These floral leggings are sending me. I don't know what it is, but it's like feels like kindergarten teacher times a million.
Yeah, she's cosplaying a teacher for some reason. I wonder if that was part of Justine's backstory.
It had to be because who the hell knows? But I mean, we've talked about the wardrobe differences, but seriously, man, these leggings. I don't know why, but seeing Amalia home in those leggings just cracks me up. I don't know. They just don't seem very Scylla-like. But
they definitely aren't.
Yeah. And I never want to see them again, honestly. Can we burn them, please?
I was just going to say, burn them with your face, girl.
Exactly. So Scylla approaches a room where we see, when she looks inside, there's a girl that has headphones on. And there's what I am guessing is the school nurse who's administering what I'm thinking they're probably saying, oh, it's a hearing test or something. But Jack Rosati is in there watching this go down. And the girl has no response when the nurse turns up the sound frequency, but it immediately affects Scylla outside the door, and it reverses the work with her face, and she's back to being Scylla again. So she is kind of freaking out, like, oh shit, like I'm in the middle of the school, my face is revealed, or Sadie's right in the other room. And so she just kind of stands there as the little girl leaves, because obviously she's not a witch because she didn't have any kind of reaction to this tone. And she hears Jack conversing with the school nurse lady and telling her to let him know if she gets any more positives. So they've been going through all the grades in this school, testing them like this. And the nurse says that they might find some more positives as they get into testing the older kids because their ears are more developed. So there's that. Now we know that they know how to test for witches because of their ears and the differences in them. So this is apparently a frequency that witches can hear and civilians cannot. And yeah, so Jack leaves, and he walks right past Scylla, doesn't see her. So basically, they're testing all of these kids with the Camarilla's own patented witch test. And that's how they found the lost bellwethers. That's how they're finding all of these lost witches.
Yeah, so it's really clever. It goes to show that, like, Camarilla, again, they're as old as witchhood, potentially, and they've been studying witches for centuries, and so this is how they're using their technology to target witch anatomy. So it's sinister and clever at the same time, what they're doing. So.
I really like that expression on Scylla's face as her disguise fades away. It's really kind of symbolic in a way, and I really love it. Just how...
I mean, this is disgusting, and so this is everything she hates and she's been afraid of, and I can't even imagine, like, to be Scylla in that position and be like, wow, this is pure.
It's all coming to fruition. Like, this is like a fear greater than conscription.
Yeah, no, it is. It's the beginning of witch genocide and hunting, and it's gross. So gross. That was my note. Gross. So gross. So we leave that gross scene, move on over to an Abigail and Adele scene. Note, Lesbian Jesus light is in this scene. And we have Abigail standing in front of the gem bellwether painting, just like staring at it. And Adele approaches and mentions, I heard you sent Gregorio to the fixers. Which, I mean, they're besties now, so Adele probably went to the fixers and was like, oh no, to see Gregorio. But Abigail's like, whatever, that bitch had it coming. Which, love your misandry. Even though Gregorio did it, it's not his fault, but Abigail's just fed up with everything. And Adele basically tries to, like, kind of cheer Abigail up, because you can tell that Abigail's really upset here. And she doesn't really want to talk about it, but she does want to talk about Gem Bellwether, because she's in front of the painting. And she mentions that Gem was it was formidable. And the Bellwethers have been standing in Gem's shadow ever since, because, yeah, we've talked about this in earlier episodes, that Gem is like the bellwether they all aspire to. And the main reason was that, Gem was the lioness of Juarez that we found out, but also she created this working that no one had ever seen before and no witch had been able to replicate. And Abigail seems proud of this when she's saying this, and I think, again, this is the thing that really made the bellwether legacy, is Gem created a storm that the world had never seen before, which is what Alder did back in the day. So Gem is the revered bellwether, but it's interesting that no witch, so I assume no other bellwether too, has been able to replicate Gem's work, which is interesting. And Adele is, like, listening to the story, and he's like, yeah, it's good to revere your elders. That's something that Tarim does. That's his culture. And she's like, yeah, it's great to revere them, but being defined by your elders, particularly Gem, is something else entirely. And that's really the root of all of Abigail's, like, identity crisis and frustration, is that she's being defined by what Gem did so long ago. and is being seen as Jem's offspring and not as Abigail. And Adele is like, but, you know, being defined by your elders is like, that's the basis of tradition. And again, that's how we got the Bellwethers as they are today. And he's trying to be supportive in this moment, but he really hits... He rubs salt on the wound that Abigail's having, because this is the thing she's trying to shake, and here he is pointing it out. And so she snaps and flips it on Adele, and he's like, a tradition? Why are you all about tradition? Tradition is the thing that got your people killed to the point of extinction because you won't fight back because it's tradition. And that strikes his nerve, because that's the thing he's upset about with the Tarim. And he's like, my people weren't just murdered. We were hunted and like murdered on purpose. Like, it's not this, we're not in some shadow thing. Like, we were fucking hunted. And Abigail doesn't really respond to that. She's just like, listen, the way to fight this enemy is not through tradition. Tradition is getting us all slaughtered. Playing nice and making babies is not going to change anything. And she like looks back at the gem painting, and she's like, listen, if Gem could make a working that would stop a battle, then maybe it's time for another Bellwether to build a working that will end a war.
Dun dun dun.
Ooh, that's a sentence.
Also, want to go back to the part where she's talking about how no other witch has replicated it, and she mentions that it's been locked away. So, was this outlawed? That no one could use this working again, because she said it's been locked away. So, did they say, okay, well, this affected, like, did this affect weather patterns too much or have too many consequences? So they're like, nobody should be able to do this working again. Like, it's important that it stopped this whole battle, but so that's an interesting thing that she said.
I wonder, I don't know, because like all the forbidden working, as we'll come to see with Dashing Soldier, is it a lot of it that the Hague outlaws seems to have to do with taking over the autonomy of another person.
Absolutely.
So I don't know that Weatherwork is doing that, but I wonder if the lock and key thing is more that like the Bellwethers are guarding whatever this song was as the Bellwether thing, but no Bellwethers have been able to replicate it. So I wonder if they're making it too, so that, because there's two reasons for that. If you can get a Bellwether that can replicate it, then that's like glorious. But also like, if they're trying to preserve their legacy and power, they don't want other people doing this. It's like only a Bellwether thing. So yeah. I wonder, because they're ambitious, and I don't put it past that line to like,
absolutely not,
preserve their legacy in that way by preventing others from doing what Gem can do.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It could be that it's too much destruction, but who knows? It's a good point.
Another loophole, like another loose end, I should say.
Question for Elliot.
Mm-hmm.
Come on the podcast. We have questions. So after that Gem Bellwether chat, we shoot on over to Alder and Raelle having another
having a heart to heart.
I guess heart to heart in which Raelle is being taken out into the woods against her will. Why does this keep happening to Raelle? This time she's in the back of a van with Alder, who's just like taking her out in the woods and giving her a pep talk. And she's like, listen, you'll be fine, girl. I think it's real sweet you wore your battle charm to this, but it's totally unnecessary. You're not heading into battle. And Raelle's like, with all due respect, I don't know where the hell I'm headed. You've just kidnapped me and took me out in the woods. I don't know what's going on. And Alder's like, well, with a bit of luck, you're going to make the history books, my dear. Because Alder's got big plans for Raelle and the mycelium. And this is kind of like paralleling Abigail's journey in a way, where Abigail is actively trying to make the history books like Gem did and forge her own path, while Raelle is being forced down this path against her will. And with a bit of luck, the mycelium might get you in the history book. So,
jeez, poor Raelle.
Poor Raelle. Always
just wants to retire to a farm with her lady love and have ducks, but no, she's out in the middle of God knows where at Fort Salem with Alder.
Yeah, like I keep saying, Raelle wants a mortgage and a marriage. That's what she wants. She wants a normal life, a boring life. And she keeps getting forced into these wild situations.
Yep.
She does not want.
Oh, poor Raelle. And poor Tally, because in the next scene, she's being ditched by Abigail. So.
I know.
So sad. Poor freaking Tally. Abigail comes to wish Tally luck at the reception because something came up, and something is that Abigail needs to go get her Jim Bellwether on. And so Tally is kind of like, well, can I come help? And Abigail's like, no, this is something I have to do by myself, which is like another poor Tally. It's another insult to injury for Tally. And
okay, I think it's sad because think about it. In this moment, Tally's trying to get Abigail to go into this like meat market reception.
Mm-hmm.
And she's trying to get Abigail to be her like wing woman because
Exactly.
poor Tally is always the wing woman. And she's like, in this moment, I need you to be my wing woman.
Exactly.
She gets screwed over by like Jim Bellwether. So like poor Tally.
Yep. Poor Tally.
Poor Tally.
But so Abigail asks Tally not to tell anyone what she's doing, and Tally's like, but you haven't told me what you're doing, so it shouldn't be hard. Like, at least tell me what you're doing and what you're getting yourself into. But Abigail has left by that point, and we see Tally just kind of a little bit lost and watching these two dudes walk into the reception. Poor Tally. She's just so awkward. And I kind of love it though. But we go to Raelle and Alder, who are arriving at the test site. And all of these trucks, all these army trucks have yellow headlights. So we've got this yellow light, Lesbian Jesus light, and it's raining. So we've got like this soft rain and Lesbian Jesus light.
Yeah,
coming from the trucks.
The lighting they use in this like experiment camp is so weird.
Isn't it? It's so
really
weird. So I'm like, what is this noise? Like all of the it's almost kind of like an accent for the lighting that's about to happen after the test. But
yeah.
So she tells Raelle that they are basically in a part of the base where they don't have to worry about prying eyes. So Alder doesn't want anyone to know about her super top secret weapon except for the people that she wants to impress. And Alder tells Raelle that she's never seen anything like what Raelle can do. So it's just confirming for Raelle that this is something that's absolutely new in the world of witch work. And so Petra comes and says that they're ready to begin the test. And we quickly go away back to Scylla and Anacostia, who have followed Orsatti to the back of this building that has a loading dock. So I'm thinking like he's making a drop off of some test results or whatever. And they stop the car and they start talking about the whole witch test that the Camarilla are doing. And Anacostia is wondering how long they've been doing this. And Scylla says that it's probably a nationwide thing. And I imagine they would have heard about it in some way if they'd been doing it for too long. But Anacostia comes to the realization that this is how they found the lost bellwethers. And Scylla questions how the Camarilla knows that this tone does what it does. And then to your point that you've made a couple of times, Anacostia says that the Camarilla have been hunting witches for centuries. So, of course, they're going to know what makes witches tick and why they're different as far as their anatomy is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
So, once again, Scylla is super impatient and wants to just go find out what the hell Orsatti's doing. And Anacostia is trying to be like, hey, slow down, girl. Like, let's just wait. But Scylla takes out her lighter and turns into her middle-aged self and goes walking up to the car.
You have to respect Scylla's gully here.
Yeah.
So Anacostia is mid-sentence. And Scylla's just like, yeah, cool, I'm gonna go. And she has zero chill. Zero.
None. And then the way she's approaching this car, like you would tell she's like trying to be a little cautious and looking around. No, girl.
No.
You did not, like, don't approach it like that, because the car she's sitting there, it's still on, and she can't tell if anyone's in the car or not. And she's just walking up to it, like, straight up. I'm like, at least just kind of stay back and see what's going on before you approach.
She's not as good at these solo missions as she thinks she is.
Yeah.
That's what this is demonstrating.
So she approaches the car, but Orsatti comes from behind her and attacks. But he's got that one of those inhibitors on with the frequency that reveals her face. So he knows she's a witch.
Yeah, interesting, because up to this point, I wasn't aware that the silencing collars they use, or the whatever, those witch silencer
inhibitors
devices, yeah, that they can undo like the spree face swapping work. Is that new?
It's not. We've never seen it used with a spree agent before. It's always been used around army witches. So this is the first time we see, because you remember in the
the bellwether wedding.
No, in the school, the tone revealed Scylla's work then, or erased Scylla's work then. So it's the same tone.
Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha.
So they're using that same tone, and it's erasing it, just like counteracts witch's work.
Got it.
So it's kind of like, because we'll have a thing later that Tally comes up with, because, you know, Tally, if you remember, can see sound. So the frequency that they're using, because think about how witches work. These witches' work happens. They're using vocal tones. So they're singing in these frequencies that's harnessing the power of the earth. Well, the Camarilla have found a way to pretty much counteract that by using a frequency that cancels their work out. So it's kind of like if you had a transformer, and you know, like when you have a transformer and a power surge makes it explode.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like that idea. So that frequency is jamming the witch's work and erasing it, basically.
Yeah, and to me that made sense when they were trying to do vocal work, but the spree face magic isn't vocal work. It's a different type of work. So I thought it was interesting that it even counteracts that type of off-canon work.
Or is it vocal work that was put into the lighter and is extended, like, time period work? So
maybe
it's using whatever, because they, you know, like they're using empty spaces to fill it with what I'm guessing is some kind of sound or wave frequency, whatever. So they could have filled the lighters, like you said, gas with whatever this vocal work.
Okay, I can see that.
So that's the only way I can see it working. But so that's cool. That's what Orsatti and his little inhibitor that he's wearing does. So fortunately for Scylla, Anacostia followed her, and she beans Orsatti with a pipe and knocks him the hell out. And we see kind of Scylla be a little humbled and is like, thanks. So she kind of realizes at that moment, though.
Thanks for saving my ass.
Yeah, thanks for saving my ass, because I just rushed in without even considering.
Without the brain cell. And that doesn't end well, Scylla.
No, it doesn't. No. So here we are. Love her so much, but she is not subtle.
No, but also, like, Anacostia swoops in and she's like, we're in this together.
Yeah.
Again, reinforcing the thing that Scylla is trying to ignore, that they are actually in this together.
Exactly.
And this is a tag teaming, not a solo mission.
Just learn to love it, Scylla.
But I imagine, like, again, Scylla being the good dodger and all that stuff, she's not comfortable with, like, relying on other people. Even, especially in a life or death situation. Like, she would have been a terrible soldier. Like, she would never have been able to, like, trust her counterparts. Like, trusting is not in her nature. That was, forced out of her through trauma. So she's learning baby steps to trust, your combat partner.
Exactly.
So, and Anacostia swooped in and was like, listen, like, I know we hate each other, but I'm going to have your back when we're on these missions. So I think that was big for Scylla to see that in action.
I think it very much was. Like she needed that, we needed to be reminded and reassured that she's not alone. Like, as much as Scylla talks about how she works alone and she's used to being alone and she doesn't make connections out of necessity, she desperately needs those connections.
Yeah, she's human. Like, just exactly. Just because she's projecting that I'm alone and I'm a lone wolf or whatever doesn't mean she's not lonely. Like, Scylla's lonely.
Yeah, especially after losing Raelle.
She's more lonely after losing Raelle. She was always lonely. But, so Anacostia stepping in and filling that void a little bit by just showing her, hey, you can trust me in these missions,
Yep. I love it.
Love it. Quarter horn for the win.
Quarter horn. I want a t-shirt.
Yep, I love quarter horn a lot. And we transition from that awesome quarter horn scene over to the ball, where Imperatrix is overseeing this Paragon reception thing, and she's just watching the male and female witches mingling in this fancy room, like rubbing her hands like, yes, all according to plan.
Gross.
So gross. And Tally is at the opposite side of the room, just like taking in all the het stuff that's happening. And has no wing woman, so she doesn't know how to navigate it. So she's just kind of like, what do I do? And then Gregorio saddles up next to her, and he just gives her a drink. And he's like, you're going to need this, girl.
Yeah, here you go.
I'll be your wingman. But shout out to him and his green and black glittering tie.
Love it. I noticed it, and I was like, oh, you're so
cute. I love that. Love his swag.
Such a touch.
It's great. So he's a Slytherin, in case you were wondering.
Yeah.
A proud one.
And an adorable one at that.
Yes, and he gives Tally this cute, adorable little pep talk to calm her down, because Tally needs a wing woman because she's from the matrifocal compound and has no idea how to navigate this, which is very clearly a High Atlantic thing, the way everybody's dressed, and there's an Imperatrix, and so Gregorio was there to, like, be a good coven mate and, help her, because he could see she was a little lost. And he's like, I got your back. Let's go find you someone worthy of the Craven name. And they go into the room to start mingling while the Imperatrix creepily watches them like a fucking predator.
Yeah, it's like, girl, you so creepy.
I hate it. You're the creepiest witch I've seen so far.
I would see her in my nightmares.
So creepy.
Just saying.
It's the creepiest. But while that's unfortunately happening, Raelle is having her big moment back at the super top secret experiment compound.
Jeez.
And Alder is behind some concrete barricade, looks like a bomb shelter with a lookout window.
Yeah, like, what are we doing? The freaking Manhattan Project up in here?
Yeah,
basically.
Apparently. Yeah, it's to protect the VIPs while the bomb goes off, basically, is what's happening. And so she's got some high-profile people in attendance to show off this witch bomb. And it's Sharma, shout out to Sharma, and VP Silver. So Sharma, being Sharma, immediately throws shade at Alder. And she's like, girl, I gotta be back in Brussels tomorrow, so whatever this is better be good. Because you're keeping me up past my bedtime. I love Sharma.
She's me too.
Any chance she has to take a dig at Alder, she will take it, and I love it.
Oh, yeah.
And Alder's like, well, Sharma, hopefully when you get back to Brussels, you'll have something additional to discuss after this demonstration. So, like, I promise it's going to be good. Then she comments on VP Silver and why he's here, because she thought President Wade was going to be here. And VP Silver's like, yeah, she came down with a nasty bug. And yeah, sure. I'm pretty sure you had a hand in why President Wade is not here right now, because you needed to see the latest and greatest in witch technology.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it's almost like he's taking notes or something for the Camarilla.
Maybe what?
That's definitely what he's doing.
Dun, dun, dun.
So, if you were confused that this man was in the Camarilla, like, he keeps popping up in these very convenient things. So, yeah, he's here on purpose. And while they're all squabbling in the barricade, Petra is taking Raelle out into center stage. And here's where the lighting gets creepier in this compound. It's night, so you have very dark blue, so death colors. Then the spotlights that are lighting them up are yellowish green. And it looks like the start of a horror movie.
Yeah, it really does. This was such a creepy scene looking.
So creepy. It's creepier than when they were on that abandoned circus in City Drop. Like, this is so creepy. But color theory aside from the creepiness, again, you got the blue because it's nighttime, and then the spotlights are yellowish, Raelle's color, and green. So you have this like merging of life and death thing. So it's like this is going to be a rebirth moment for lots of things. And in the middle of the compound, Petra's giving Raelle this pep talk. And she's like, you got this, go do your thing. Then the biddies form this protection wall around Alder and the VPs.
my gosh.
Because I guess the barricade wasn't enough. They have to do a magical barricade on top of it. So after everyone's protected, Raelle sings her seed, her voice augments, and this green and gold dust cloud rises from the ground. And like in the mycelium room, she pushes it out into the courtyard and it just destroys everything in its path. And this must have taken a lot out of Raelle because she collapses immediately and grabs her battle charm because she doesn't know what's going to happen. And it's just like, please, I just don't want to die. And then from the rubble, we see all these little glowing mushrooms pop out. So there's the mycelium destroying inorganic and organic matter in this compound. And from it, the mushrooms pop out, which again are fruiting bodies of a mycelium. So that's the mycelium, like picking out its little soldiers or whatever, like popping them out of all this mess that it destroyed. And the VP looks completely shook by this because, again, he's taking notes for the Camarilla and is like, oh, fuck, what is this? This was not in the What Are Witches handbook that I've been reading.
Mm-hmm.
Sharma and Alder just look impressed. Like, Sharma's like, okay, this was worth the sleep deprivation. I do have something to tell the people back at the Brussels. Thank you, Alder. So Alder's thrilled. This is what she wanted. And Petra just collects Raelle. And I think that was such a cute moment because this is like her mother figure in this moment.
Yep.
Like collecting Raelle and being like, you're okay. You're okay. Well done.
And then Petra also is looking kind of amazed at what Raelle has done.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is something no one has ever seen before because even those that were at the Tarim extraction from the high up in the helicopter, they really couldn't see it. They just saw this big dust cloud. So
exactly,
this is the first time everyone's visualizing all the things that have been said about the Tarim Basin for the first time.
And I feel like it's on a smaller scale than what Raelle will be capable of later.
Yeah, this was just a taste. This was a
taste.
And this was really just like a weapons demonstration. Like, hey, we made this new bomb. Investors, alliance, or like allies, come see our new weapon. That's what this was. It was a show from Alder.
And I also think that Sharma, while she's like, oh, heck yeah, and I've got something to tell what's-his-face when I get back to Brussels, it's also like kind of, I think she's probably also kind of a little jealous that Alder has this. And
yes. Oh, yes. It's partially like, fuck, Alder's in control again because Alder's got the power. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's bittersweet for Sharma. She's like, great, we got a weapon against the Camarilla, but god damn it, why does it have to be
couldn't it have been me?
Why couldn't it have been Comrade Boris?
Yeah, something else. Me, anybody. British lady.
Submit your names for British lady. We still don't have a name for her.
Yeah, we don't have a name for her either. I'm calling her Matilda for now.
Hey man, Comrade Matilda.
Comrade Matilda. Yeah. So
that's a witch bomb, guys.
That's the witch bomb. We're gonna go back to Tally being besieged by a very boring guy talking up his family to try to like get her to freaking handfast with him because his great grandfather's third cousin Perdita Tining.
Question.
Yeah.
So up till this point, we have seen male witch flirting from like Witch Father's gang of men. Mm-hmm. Is this what High Atlantic flirting is? Because what is this? It's so weird.
So weird. I feel like this is the guy that everyone at the High Atlantic parties kind of makes fun of and ignores because he's so obsessed with his own ancestry that he can't help but tell you all the stories about who he's related to.
But I wonder if he's reading the Wooing Witches book from the Imperatrix, because this sounds like her kind of pickup line. It's
no,
like,
definitely.
Like
he's definitely not one of Witch Fathers.
No, because those male witches never once brought up who they were or who their mothers were. Yeah. But like these guys are like, you know who my mom was? You should have seen
the only thing he ever said was, "Hey, I'm here to support you," and do anything you need. That's what the Witchfather guys were on about.
That's kind of what like Gregorio's like too. He's more like, hey, I'm your friend, I'm supporting you kind of thing. But this guy is all about, let's make witch babies because of who my mama was.
Exactly. So he's like the Imperatrix's like star person or something. Maybe like she took him under her wing and has been like, maybe he made the ribbon board. Who knows?
You know what? He is her assistant. I accept that headcanon.
And he's just trying to find a way to do his duty to further the witch bloodlines.
He's doing this for America.
So Tally has no idea who the hell Perdita Tyning is, but apparently she's the first witch to employ the Balkan composition in the Battle of the Urals. I'm like, Tally's just like, okay, and he's kind of like taken aback that she doesn't know what he's talking about. Because she may read I can't talk. She may read Reverie, the magazine, but she didn't study witch history like you did, bro. So
I also wonder too if like, given the societal stuff and how they're raised prior to conscription, if in the high Atlantic culture they have
private schools,
right, where they probably learn witch history, which probably isn't taught in the session.
Nope.
Who knows what goes on in the matrifocal compound? So I wonder if like he's just like assuming like, hey, you've heard of my mom because all high Atlantics learn about her in witch history class.
Exactly.
So another cultural thing, I think.
Yep. Tally learned how to make pottery and like fire kilns. She didn't learn witch history.
Also, her mother would never let her learn.
Exactly.
Like never. The way Mama Craven was, there's no way. Like you said, all her information came from Reverie, which probably didn't talk about this dude's mom. So
exactly.
Yeah.
So I think he bores her into a vision.
Listen, if I was hearing this man drone on about whatever this is, I too would escape into a vision of the dashing soldier because that's what I want. I don't want to be here.
Right? So she's being bored into having a vision of Alder's memory. And what we see is dashing soldier being very upset and crying.
And now I'm upset.
And now Theora is upset as a matter of course. And so the dashing soldier says they're killing themselves. So we can only assume she's referring to the people that they'd been fighting. And there is a building on fire in front of her. And she says, you stole my work. So
Alder.
Guess what?
Alder,
who was like, no, we don't use this kind of work.
Fucking steals it.
Hypocrite. It goes all the way back in history. Alder's been a hypocrite since probably the beginning.
Yeah.
But you hear her off camera for the start of this yelling, Sergeant Baton, it had to be done. So we know her last name and her rank. So Sergeant Baton, it had to be done. And so she's like, they surrendered, but Alder used Sergeant Baton's off-canon work to have them kill themselves anyway, to make an example.
Which is so fucked up. Like,
fucked up.
Not only are you breaking the Hague's what work do we use, but also that's like treason. That's a war crime.
It is.
Executed prisoners of war. That's a war crime.
This is you getting brought up on charges and sentenced, in a just world.
Right. So like, Alder, what the fuck?
Exactly. And Alder is crying too, and she screams Nicta as Sergeant Baton walks away. And so we finally have her whole name, Sergeant Nicta Baton, but also we can see from Alder's reaction and from Nicta's that there was a connection there beyond commanding officer and soldier. So there's something going on there.
This was their breakup.
Yes, this was like their breakup. So there was something going on there that made this an even more emotional moment than it might have been otherwise, obviously. And Tally's just sitting there in the middle of this vision, crying as well. And when she comes back to the present, she collapses, and everybody kind of gathers around her to see, to try to help her. And my goodness, this was a very short sequence that had so much information in it.
It's the best.
So we get to actually meet for the first time Theora's love of her life.
Yes. Okay. So at this point, I have to give a disclaimer in the podcast. So up until now, I think we've done a pretty good job at remaining objective and impartial.
Except for me when Scylla is concerned.
But still, I mean, we admit that we're biased towards Scylla.
Yeah.
But overall, we did a good job recapping and analyzing and being unbiased. But from here on, now that we have Nicta Batan's name, I'm going to struggle really hard whenever she comes up because of my unconditional love for her. She frazzles my brain and invokes all kinds of feelings, so my objectivity will go out the window. And I will not apologize for that. So she has done many horrible things, and I don't care. So
I'll be the devil's advocate on this because I don't have a particular I don't have the same kind of love for Nicta that you do. So
it's more for me. It's fine.
No, I'm just saying that at least we'll have me saying, but she did this.
And then I will say I don't care.
But I'll say it's fine that you don't care. But
yeah, judge me all you want. I don't care. Other thing I just want to say about this, in the dream, I think it's interesting. The colors in this particular dream are very similar to the one in Raelle's fungi experiment.
Mm-hmm.
It's those blues and those yellowish greens, which I think is really interesting. Yep. And I think this is the scene, too, where Nicta gives the heartbreaking line, "Your heart is black, Sarah Alder."
Mm-hmm.
And just the way she delivers that, it's like, to what you said, there's something much deeper going on with these two. It's not just like, my officer stole my work and just murdered all these people. Like, this is like a break of like deep trust that's happening between the two of them. And it's the causing of this big rift that's going to have huge consequences, or it already has, like in the present day.
So like we've seen the relationship with Tally and Alder change when and after she was a biddy. It's kind of a similar dynamic to what I see with Nicta and Alder, except they had more time, except Nicta obviously wasn't a biddy, and it's like a weird mashup of different kinds of relationship to me. Like, I feel like it's almost a weird kind of mix of, there's some kind of chemistry going on there, yes, but also there's a mother-daughter vibe going on there, or like a mentor type. It's just an interesting mashup of relationship that I hope we get to find out more about in season 3.
Yeah, I mean, they hinted at it in the last episode where Tally got the vision where they're talking about the work, and basically Alder's like, you need to harness that, and Nicta's like, well, maybe you could show me. So you got this, like, you see that Nicta has this admiration for Alder, looks up to her. Alder was going to help her harness the work, and then Alder straight up steals it and commits a war crime. Like,
yeah,
ultimate betrayal of, like, I'd be pissed off too. Like, that's
exactly
so fucked up. So fucked up.
Where do you go after that? Because Alder is the head of the army, right, and everything's under her control. Right. So there's no one to report that to.
No. And it's just like, you just witnessed a war crime and there's
nothing you can do.
And it's your fault. Like, it's partially your fault.
Yeah, exactly.
She's like, I showed you this work and then you used it to do this atrocity. Like, your heart is black. Like, this is just such a huge betrayal. Like, and it's
a 180 of her every view of Alder.
Yeah, being shattered. Because again, for everybody, like in this, because Nicta is in the similar time period where Tally's at. This isn't the Revolutionary War, so like Alder's been around for centuries at this point. She's still this goddess figure, and you're just like, wow, this is the shit you do. Like, wow, like it's so fucked up. It's so fucked up. And we see in the present day, Alder didn't learn from this experience, clearly. She's still doing war crimes. She's puppeting the president left and right. So, it's just, what the fuck?
Someone who's supposed to be a paragon of what a witch should be,
right,
is out here committing the atrocities that all of these people hate witches for.
Yeah,
like,
so
what the fuck, Alder?
I know, it's just, it's fucked up. It's so fucked up. So Nycta's anger in this moment is completely justified by
absolutely
what happened. So
yeah. So from that hot mess, we're gonna go on over to Raelle comforting Tally, and she's sitting on the bed, and Raelle asks her what happens, and Tally says Alder's memories. This one was so much worse than the others. And Raelle asks what it was about, and Tally's reply is death, a lot of death. And said that Alder and that redacted soldier, whose name is Nycta, are both in the middle of all of it. So she's realized the enormity of these visions that she's being given, these memories. But she doesn't really want to deal with that at the moment or talk about it. So she changes the subject and asks about Raelle's test. And Raelle tries to be modest, but kind of is bragging a little bit, but is also sorry about bragging a little bit. And says that she blew up a bunch of shit in front of the vice president and brass from The Hague, which is such a Raelle way to put things.
It really is.
And Tally says, wow. And then, like I said, Raelle apologizes, and she kind of notices that Abigail's nowhere to be seen. So she's like, did she come home last night? And Tally tells her that Abigail didn't come to the reception. And then we kind of, this whole time you kind of not really realized, but you remember earlier when it was raining? Well, now it's freaking storming. And guess who's responsible? I think her name is Abigail Bellwether. So
her name is definitely Abigail Bellwether. Listen, we started the episode with her shooting water spigots at her unit, and now a storm is a brewing. So bookend.
Yep, exactly. So Abigail's brewing up a huge storm. We get a scene of Adele walking along a road outside, and he notices that this is not a natural storm, and alarm bells go off, and he's like, "Oh, Abigail." So he goes to find her, and we switch to Abigail, who has like snow falling, and then two twisters come down at her bidding, and you can see how she's moving her hands like in a spiral pattern to control the tornadoes. And she's doing this with, I'm like, so how are the hand motions contributing to this whole situation? Yeah. Since their work is vocal, is it just a tool for her to use?
No, I remember Elliot has said that, like, in India they use gesture for work. So maybe it's the combination. Like, she has to do that gesture to augment the work.
So, but we also have to keep in mind that she's trying to recreate Jim Bellwether's work. So this could be an addition to what she has to do.
Right, exactly.
To use the gestures.
Yeah.
So who knows? Maybe we'll find out. But so you can see as this continues that you get a more close up of her face, not super close up, but so close up enough that you can see like the blood vessels in her eyes have burst, and then blood starts coming out of her mouth as she falls to the ground and coughs, and more blood comes out. So Adele has found her, and he goes and he holds her, and then you just see her kind of shell-shocked, laying there suffering from what she's done to herself. So she's messed up her vocal cords.
Yeah.
A flashback to that one training scene where Anacostia had her sing the Seed of Discord until a similar thing happened. But so we know that singing these certain seeds can affect them physically, as far as like tear up their vocal cords, make them bleed, etc.
Yeah.
So we get this really beautiful shot that zooms out of Adele and Abigail on these mossy rocks as he's holding her. And that's how the episode ends.
Yeah.
Self-destructive behavior from Abigail, trying to run before she can walk, in my opinion. Like, I feel like she could work up to it at a slower rate, but she's ready to go because of how she's been feeling. So she's been being propelled on by her feeling of inadequacy to harm herself.
Yeah, definitely, because I think she's trying to compete with the Witchbomb in a way. Because the Witchbomb already exists, it's already powerful, and she's like, I need to be powerful now to be Abigail now. I don't want to wait. And it's such a like young adult kind of mentality. And also it's like, to compound the situation, it's like, well, the Camarilla is here, the threat is real, my family's being hunted. Gotta be Gem right now, you know?
Yeah, so it's like a nice mixture, and also a reminder that these are like 18, 19-year-old kids.
Correct.
So keep that in mind. That's episode 3. And little recap. So if we go back through the episode, we've got Silver reinforcing the fact that he's a giant asshole and a hypocrite, and doesn't feel like it's fair for the daughters of all the civilians to be called to conscription, because, you know, they're not others, they're part of our population. So blah blah blah. Fuck you, Silver. That's all I've got to say about him. Besides the fact that he is obviously a Camarilla operative. So we've got the Imperatrix, who's trying to breed everybody creepily and wants Abigail to go handfast with Gregorio and have all of his babies. We got Raelle saying, no hell fucking way, I'm gay, and I'm not doing anything you say. But augmented, like, she wouldn't even be in the Imperatrix's like realm of awareness if it wasn't for her being augmented by the mycelium.
Yeah, so exactly.
That's the reason that she's even on her radar, because Raelle being an outcross and her mother being stubborn is kind of a big strike in her column. We have Isadora and Raelle with all of the mycelium testing, and the mycelium finally showing Raelle what it wanted from her, or what it needed from her to further their connection and colonize her body as a way to get its power out into the world to fight the Camarilla. So Alder is super duper jazzed about having a new weapon, and is still on her path of not seeing Raelle as a person anymore and as more of a weapon. Yeah. And it's hypocrite city for her too, because she's out here being the giant, let's puppet and manipulate the president to do whatever I want and need, and then insult and then talk about how arrogant the Imperatrix is afterwards. Got Abigail feeling useless and without a purpose, because all she is feeling like is a womb and a way to make more bellwether babies. So she's searching for her own path to make a name for herself, and is jealous of her unit mates. Tally is out here in I'm having Alder's memory land, and is now having awake visions of the dashing soldier, who we now know as Nick de Baton. So Penelope, poor Penelope, is coming into her own and learning how to use her powers, which is tragic in a way, considering what happens in subsequent episodes. And it's very sad that her father is a bigoted asshole. We have Scylla and Anacostia out here doing the Lord's work, if you will.
Oh, yes, they are.
By teaming up and tracking the Camarilla operations within the Not Our Daughters movement. So they find out that Jake Rosati is the kind of low-level Camarilla connection for Shane in his Not Our Daughters movement, and is funding them and also testing all of the school children to see if they can find lost witches. With this hearing, quote unquote, test, Anacostia and Scylla finally kind of realizes that she needs Anacostia's help in all of this. So maybe she'll be less of a lone wolf as their partnership goes on. And you got to get to see Anacostia care. Like, you could see that she cares for Scylla, and that Scylla's kind of like another one of her kids, in the same sense that Raelle and all of those folks were. Then we have reinforcing the fact that the Camarilla are here and have all this technology. The witches are back in hand-to-hand combat training. Raelle's big moment with the Witchbomb and exploding all of those concrete structures in front of all of the important people. And Abigail trying her hardest to recreate Jim Bellwether's working and hurting herself in the process, which is super sad, and I just want to give her a hug at this point.
Yeah, someone hug her.
Someone give her... I mean, I know Adele's there to give her a hug.
I know, but she needs more hugs.
Yeah, obviously. She does.
She does.
But, yeah, and kind of going back to the Imperatrix talking... why is my brain not working? Elliot talks in After the Storm about how the LGBTQ plus population are encouraged to procreate for the cause. Once again, gross. And Adele is a risk handfasting wise because they don't know much about the Tarim and their powers and how that would translate into more Bellwether babies. And I like the way that he talks about the mycelium in After the Storm, because he says that it's an ancient fungal sentience. Like, he thinks of it as a goddess, and it connects to all these plants and has an agency and a consciousness. So he compares it to a biological supercomputer. And that's just a really cool way to think about it. So it's kind of like an earth goddess and also this sentient being, but also has the capability to process, I guess, crap tons of information from everywhere and use that as its power. And also through Raelle, it's now bonded and colonized Raelle and is going to give her the power to turn the tide of the war, or to become a weapon for the witches.
She's the Witchbomb. The Witchbomb is out of the bag.
So, there we are.
All right. Well, there was a lot of juicy stuff happening in this episode, and a lot of pretty cool characters we had in here, some new ones. So, who do you give your biggest witch energy award to this time?
Raelle collar.
Yeah. Same.
Lesbian Jesus.
It was the lines with the
obvious
Imperatrix.
choice. For me, it was just the obvious choice.
You sea hag.
Not only, see, it could have been like the mycelium, but freaking Raelle being a sassy little sassy pants won it for me because I freaking love Raelle and the way that I love how she has a particular way of saying things. Even when it's in mother tongue, she does, but just the way that she says things in general it's a little closer to the way that I say things in everyday life, so I appreciate her sass.
Yeah, every single scene with Raelle was big witch energy. Like the mycelium gets it by proxy, but like this was all Raelle. It wasn't you, fungus. Take a step back. This was all Raelle.
Also, just the scene where she's talking to Abigail and getting ready to go to her weapons test, and just the way that she sasses and she's like, "Do tell."
Have a drink on me.
Yeah, have a drink. That's such lesbian Jesus energy.
Yeah, hydrate more if you weren't already hydrating.
For lesbian Jesus.
Yeah.
We need a t-shirt.
We do. But yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, those collar women, they just got the big witch energy. It oozes out. They do. I love to see it.
Everybody be jealous of the collar women's BWE.
My runner-up goes to the Imperatrix for
just being
existing,
just existing in her like
whatever
power that she has.
She's kind of like Kalita, where she just is in a position of power and just exudes big witch energy all the time because she can. So
exactly,
I'm not mad at it.
No,
I think her priorities are weird, but I'm not mad at her energy.
For real.
So
the sex wall creeps me out.
Yeah, the sex, it's just, why? It's so weird. The pedigrees, it's just, let it go. Anyway,
so sad.
That was episode 3, guys.
It's episode 3.
Ooh, and we finally got a name to the mystery soldier. Thank God. Thank the gods.
And now Theora can just swoon as much as she wants.
Yes, expect that to get worse going forward. It will
just wait till episode 8.
Yes.
I'm not sure she'll be able to speak.
No, I have comments of things that I said in real life as I was watching this for the first time that I will share with all of you.
I can't wait. I can't wait. I can't wait.
No shame. Anyway, so all right, guys. Well,
yeah.
Until next time. Bye.
Bye.
And with that, we've been Big Witch Energy. If you like this episode, check out all of our other episodes right here on YouTube. Please like, comment below, and subscribe for more amazing content. Hydrate for Lesbian Jesus.